his fault.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, good morning to you. Glad to have you here. We've got the full contingent of Bible guys here. Of course, Scott is here. He is the senior pastor over at Agape. Here in the studio is Billy Miller, and of course, Steve Hess is here too, the federal government. Let him get here today.
I'm glad we put you where you belong, last of the list. So.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I'm here, and we're going to talk about. There's only one big topic this morning to talk about, and that is what happened last night.
Saturday night.
Saturday night. Get the correspondence dinner. Now I'm going to be honest with you. This has happened so much now. I'm wondering if they should not just get rid of the Secret Service.
Yeah.
All right, to be honest with you, and come up with some new form of protection for the President of the United States. That's the sixth attempt on this man.
Yep. And I advise you not to, but if you happen to go read the manifesto, he brags about how easy it was to get weapons into the hotel.
Yeah.
I just checked in a day early with all my weapons. And
Mhm.
I was like, surely the Secret Service was there by then, right? I mean, surely.
Well, they did. They would have
appears
done a
not,
sweep.
so-
I mean, I can tell you they've done a sweep, but that doesn't mean that they're, checking on everybody's luggage and stuff.
Well, you see how the guy just ran
Yeah.
through. You would have thought one of the guys would have done a football blocking thing, just
Yeah.
run. You have to run over me to get past me type
Yeah.
thing. But
Yeah.
they all just kind of peeled
Well,
back and
they were all just sitting around shooting a breeze. And if you're
they
not,
thought it was over.
if you're not in a tactically positioned mind, you're going to first go, what the, and then react.
That's the key.
Yeah.
They weren't expecting.
No.
They,
I don't know how after 5 attempts you can't expect a sixth. My brain can't fathom that.
Well,
Yeah.
you got to realize that what they do, however many times a day that he's moving and how many teams are involved,
It becomes routine.
it
Yeah.
does. It does become so routine that these 6 attempts are in the midst of, 5,000 movements of the president.
Yeah.
Right? And so obviously it's more than any other president in history, but they kind of get to the place where like, hey man, this is our hotel.
It's
We've got
routine.
we got this covered. Nobody's going to get into the ballroom. We've got
what
the
I
exits.
thought was really interesting was that the president slowed everybody up about leaving because he wanted to see what was going on.
Even the president rubbernecks.
He wasn't running out like they wanted him to. He slowed everybody up because who was it? One of you guys said that Vance was the
Yeah,
first.
Vance
down.
was gone.
They
They ran in, snatched him up, and he hot-footed it. So
Well, we were just saying before the show even started that the two of them shouldn't even been in the same room together.
yeah.
And they probably thought that we got to get out.
the Speaker of the House
You had number 1, 2, and 3
Yeah.
all sitting there. So
ready to go and do their thing. And the president really doesn't need to go to correspondence dinner. I don't know. He did. I would.
Okay, now
if
look.
I were him, I'd lose my appetite.
if there's one man who is not going to miss a press
Oh, I
opportunity,
agree.
And
Trump
the-
isn't going to be anywhere else that
Well,
night.
he even said later, he said, I was about to just rip them up. I mean, he said he had some good jokes just to
I do
rip
regret
on them.
that Levitt happened to have used the word
Mhm.
shot. There will be some shots tonight. I do regret that she used that particular phraseology with the way the night turned out. But
I didn't even hear that part.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right before
right
she was
before.
interviewed right before, and they said
Talking
it's gonna
about
be
his
a great
speech.
speech, and there will be some shots fired, and
I mean, he was going to shoot fire at the
Yes,
reporters.
yes.
Yeah. They interviewed him afterward. Well, he went
And
to
60
the
minutes.
the press room right after the thing. And
He tore into Nora McDonald.
I didn't see
in
that.
the 60 Minutes interview.
Yeah.
Well, right after they went straight back to the White House, and one of the guys asked him, "Why do you think this keeps happening to you?" And his response was, "Well, because I'm doing a lot." And if you look at assassination history, the presidents who get shot at are the ones who are doing a lot. And I thought, man, you have no clue why this is happening to you.
No, you missed the boat. on
There
that
is
one.
a spirit of murder and of hate, and the fact that you make it about what you're doing and who you are, I think it just shows a complete and total lack of the reality on the ground. There's
More
a
and more
spirit at work
people-
here.
There needs to be a really strong concerted effort to sit there, and there's some videos out there, and so if I would have this video pulled up for the very next clip, and to show every single congresswoman, congressman, senator,
Yeah.
leader that has says we need to kill him, get that MFR, shoot, fight, destroy, all of those things, and Nazi, Hitler, pedophile, and there's a video you can pull up on YouTube, and it's like 2 minutes of all of these people on the left just calling him. And so when you hear that and you are not informed, then you're going to believe everything that they're saying. And so what you're doing is charging people like this, and they're going to commit violence. But this is what they want.
This guy, Cole Allen, I think his name, he thought the president was a pedophile.
Yep.
He's a
Rapist,
a rapist and a traitor.
pedophile, and traitor.
I wonder where he heard all that information from.
Yeah.
Pick any
From the
Democratic leader.
Right.
From the party who won't fund DHS.
Where do you think that goes now? Do you think that go? Or do you think number one, do you think this gets him his ballroom without anybody trying to stop him anymore? And two, do you think this actually gets some movement on DHS getting funded?
We'll find out. We'll find out. I'm not going to hold my breath about anything for the Democrats.
You know, it really is kind of a ridiculous thing that we don't even have a place to gather like that at on the White House grounds.
Yeah.
We have to go to a public hotel, and I think they said that the ballrooms at the bottom have 1,000 rooms above them. How are you going to vet all those?
Well, obviously you're not going to.
No, you're not. Obviously, you're not
it
going
didn't
to.
happen.
Well, it's like they have those state dinners and stuff at the White House.
Yeah,
People don't realize they set up a really big tent.
Yeah.
To do that.
it really is crazy.
There's
isn't
been
it?
times that people had to wade through the water.
Yeah.
To get to their seats.
Yeah,
Because the back floods. And it would seem to me, if you're the most powerful nation on earth, you'd have a place that the president could go to and not have to worry about that kind of stuff.
A secure place, perhaps.
Yeah.
And how much money would it save as well? Okay, yeah, it's going to be a lot to build it, and guess what? It's not costing the American government any money to
No.
build it. But how much money is it going to save? Number one, you don't have to rent that ballroom anymore at whatever hotel. You don't have to pay for all the security to secure the perimeter.
Right,
It's
right.
just on the White House. It's done.
Yeah.
So probably in the long run, it's going to save probably billions of dollars over the next 10, 15, 20 years. And honestly, Trump's going to get very little use out of this thing. It's really built for future generations.
Well, and they could save that billions and give it to all the small education centers in Minnesota.
You need more Lyrian centers. So
Yeah, more Lyrian centers.
or maybe out in California, all the hospice centers that they have.
yeah,
out
that
there.
one's far worse.
Did you see Oz in his interview? So Oz,
No.
he's in charge of the. So they had a little clip of they were saying somebody was interviewing him and saying, you guys are politicizing what's going on in California, and they played a clip of Newsom saying we have closed down 4 different hospice fake fraud hospices during his time as governor, and Oz came in and said he's been governor for this many years and they've shut down 4 of them. He said, do you know how many we've shut down since we started looking into this, which has been about like 8 weeks? According to what he said they've shut down 210 in LA County alone
Yeah.
Wow.
in 8 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And he said the man's not doing his job.
Nope.
I mean, you tout 4 has been shut down in 8 years, and we did 210 in
We did
8
4
weeks.
an hour ago.
I mean,
Are you guys surprised that he's not doing his job? I mean,
No,
come on.
Newsom, no.
The guy is a loser. All he's doing is being and holding an office. That's what he wants.
Listen, you two guys are military guys. I have a question. This has been something that's been gone over and over again in my mind. So we have a war going on. We have blatant false information that's being given out by a lot of our news media.
Mhm.
Some of it looks like it's just basically taking whatever the Iran is saying and repeating it.
Right.
Where's the line between aiding and abetting the enemy? Aiding an enemy would seem to me be to keep their propaganda going and to try to deceive the American people. Where is that line? When does it cross? And what are we doing to prepare for that?
I think that line's been crossed a very long time
for
ago.
a very long time.
And even I'll take it just even domestically with the form of government. The minute that somebody like AOC made the statement, it's good that America is in decline and will fall because something else can rise from its ashes, meaning socialism. She should have been arrested and immediately tried for treason, but because we don't believe that way anymore, but because of the overwhelming majority of the leaders in the House and the Senate and the country are open to those ideas, they don't see it as the treason. They forget the McCarthy hearings and all of the stuff when we were trying to fight the people that are running the Democratic Party right now. And we don't have the stomach for what really needs to happen in viewing those things. They just don't see it that way. And what people are calling Trump by calling him a Nazi, a fascist, and all this, that's just bringing the rule of law back. And they think that it's being fascism. And so the country doesn't, because we don't think civics anymore, and we don't understand that there's not a unified, there's no longer the quote unquote melting pot. We're no longer about the Constitution. We're about whatever the party and or the demographic that wants to fight. And we just don't have people that believe that way anymore.
But you would define aiding the enemy as being spewing their propaganda.
Absolutely. Yeah. There should be.
Ask Geraldo Rivera. Remember what happened to him?
No.
He was talking about some troop movements.
Oh, that's right.
He drew the plans on the ground.
He was drawing the plans on the ground.
In Iraq,
And they put him under guard, and they were going to go after him in a court of law, a military court of law, and he got dropped. But
that was 20 years ago.
20 years ago,
it's just a difference.
People started taking things like that seriously. I remember Mike Wallace got in all kinds of problems. The same thing. He was talking about troop movements and things of that nature. You're not supposed to, you get that information, you're supposed to hold it to yourself. In fact, you should be going to whoever is in charge of the military and tell them, you got a leak.
Yeah.
We got a leak in the Supreme Court right now, still leaking stuff out. So why did they drop that with Geraldo? If he did that, was he like, I didn't
because there's a lot of people in this country that do not understand that there's certain things you don't talk about.
Well, and there's also, when you start looking at criminality of things, there really is a level of ignorance that is much minimally charged than if it's malicious intent. And so he wasn't being malicious. He was just being a moron.
Yeah, it's the first time we had reporters reporting live from a war zone like that. And he just didn't think about the fact that, hey, me sitting here drawing out our plan of attack is revealing our plan of attack to anyone who is actually watching this at the moment.
So he was just being careless and being stupid.
Yeah.
He wasn't deliberately trying to do that. But when you have news organizations who are deliberately hearing what the Secretary of War is saying and deliberately saying, I'm going to push something completely different. If you did it, they would scream, freedom of press, freedom of expression, and freedom of speech. And so you're trying to, I don't know. To me, it's just asinine. I don't even know why Trump allows.
That's what our enemy does now. They use our strengths against us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Why does Trump even allow them to be in the press room? So you know what? You guys have been continuing disputing these lies against us. So guess what? ABC, NBC, CBS, you're no longer allowed in the press room.
I think that should be something that should be done. It's like, yeah, you got freedom of the press, but you're lying.
But you don't have freedom to be in this room. This is a privilege for you to be in this room. So you're out of here.
I would do the same thing. I would say you guys are consistently putting out fraudulent information, part of the story, until you're willing to actually be a press organization again. Your credentials are rejected. I would do the same thing.
There are likely some laws wrapped around that. I know that there's a requirement that a certain number of independent reporters be there, are allowed in the room. I suppose you could decide who those people were. It's like, you're the least bad of the bunch.
Well, you're there.
We got to have 20 people from network television. It's going to be 20
You're
people
there
from
at
that
the
one.
graces of the president.
Right.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, the only reason why there is a daily briefing is because that was put in place before we had TV and radio.
Yeah.
So it doesn't need to be there anymore. It's just something we do now.
I think that he or Vance, or obviously the president's a little bit more busy, but I think that they should create a presidential YouTube channel or something, and every night, more than what the press secretary does, just get up there and have somebody read and go, hey, this is Senator so-and-so, and they voted against this. By the way, did you know that they get their funding from X, Y, and Z?
Yeah,
and
why not?
I would go down and just give the information, let somebody, and just put it out there, and without having to deflect with all of these reporters, and just feed the people the right information.
And that thought takes us to our first break here on the Dave Elswick Show. On Monday, we've got the Bible guys here. We're talking about, of course, another try on the president's life. That makes 6. All 6 have failed. They've gotten as close as his ear before. That's a little too close for comfort as far as I'm concerned. I think that the president probably should not go to those type of events anymore. You guys feel that way?
No, his arrogance will prevent it.
Well, okay. Well, I understand. We'll be back in a moment here on the Dave Elswick Show.
But I agree with
The Danielle Gill Podcast, now available on the Salem Podcast Network. Actually lowering prices has rarely ever been an accomplishment a Democrat could even claim. The Democrat modus operandi is to use each crisis as an excuse to pass legislation which increases spending, gives more power to the government, and which will make new crises which they can't then use as an excuse to pass more horrible legislation.
Subscribe for free today on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or at SalemPodcastNetwork.com.
As veterans, we're no strangers to helping others.
It's what we were taught, trained, and told to do.
It could be for anything. Helping a friend move.
Listening to a fellow veteran for hours, at any hour of the day.
Or just simply making time for people. A neighbor, a loved one, or even a stranger.
We're often the first to help others. There's no question about it.
But we do have one question for the veterans listening.
When was the last time you reached out for help?
Perhaps it's time to do for yourself what you would do for others.
If you or someone you know needs resources, whether it's for stress, finances, employment, or mental health, don't wait. Reach out.
Find more information at va.gov/reach. That's va.gov/reach.
Brought to you by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs and the Ad Council.
What is dedication?
The thing that drives me every day as a dad is Dariana. We call him Day for short. Every day he's hungry for something, whether it's attention, affection, knowledge. And there's this huge responsibility in making sure that when he's no longer under my wing, that he's a good person. I think the advice I would give is you don't need to know all the answers. The craziest thing was believing that your dad knew everything. So as a dad, you felt like you had to know everything. You had to get everything right. It's okay to make mistakes. As long as it's coming from love, then, it kind of starts to work itself out. I want him to be able to sit back one day and go, we worked together, we did a good job.
That's dedication. Find out more at fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
You can watch the show right now. The Dave Elswick Show is streaming live on Facebook. This is 101.1 The Answer.
We continue here on the Dave Elswick Show. Val is trying to pull up the 60 Minutes interview and getting to the segment where Nora McDonald, basically quoted this guy's manifesto about, his being a pedophile, being a traitor, and I forget whatever else that he said exactly about the president. But the president came right back at her about it, that it was not true.
What the thing I don't understand is why would some lawsuit started? It's slander.
Yeah.
If you're reporting something that you know to be false in an effort to impugn someone's character, that by definition is slander. And that carries significant penalties in this country. You've got plenty of lawyers on staff. Start firing up the lawsuits. Shut some of these people up. And worst case, the settlement requires you going back and recanting what you said. That would be fantastic. So
didn't Obama repeal some measure where you couldn't use newspaper printing for propaganda?
I don't remember.
I think there was something he did that allowed that. I'll look it up with you guys.
But here's the thing that those on the right need to remember, that we were doing the exact same thing to Biden, to Obama, and I put out a couple posts on Facebook about it. I addressed it within the congregation, that we have an entire generation of people who do not research.
Yep, live by soundbite.
They live by a soundbite or a meme. They don't take 5 seconds to just Google it, for crying out loud. Even look up Wikipedia, for crying out loud. And we are sharing things. And so there's this narrative that there's an entire organization of pedophiles that run the entire world.
Yeah.
And so I've told these people, and I've said it point blank to a couple guys that I work with. I said, you are bearing false witness against people, and you will give an account for everything that you're saying, everything that you're posting. You are making false accusations. So what we're watching manifest by all of these attacks is okay. Go ahead, Blake.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and play that. This is the president talking to Nora McDonald last night on 60 Minutes, and I think she just asked him about the manifesto and asked him about the pedophile,
Pedophile rape trader.
rape, and of course, traitor.
And he also wrote this: I am no longer willing to permit a pedophile, rapist, and traitor to coat my hands with his crimes. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I was waiting for you to read that because I knew you would, because you're horrible people. Horrible people. Yeah, he did write that. I'm not a rapist. I didn't rape anybody. I'm not a pedophile. You read that crap from some sick person. You shouldn't be reading that on 60 Minutes. You're a disgrace. But go ahead. Let's finish the interview.
And he also wrote this.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. President, because I feel
Those
exactly
are the things I love about
the
it.
same way. It was not necessary for her to quote from that.
Right.
Who is
Yeah.
Nora? Who is this guy? All right.
Yeah.
Who is he? Why would you take someone who was trying to assassinate the president of the United States and give him credibility by reading what he wrote in his manifesto?
Remember all the school shooting stuff? They stopped doing that. But why did they do it here? So they would never give, and they wouldn't say their name after it was identified. They wouldn't put out any manifesto.
Yeah, she didn't say this guy's name, and she knew it by now.
Yeah. And so why did they put this out? Because they want to continue the narrative.
Yeah.
The left and the media are actively trying to destroy this country.
They're hand in glove.
They don't want to say it. Nobody wants to address that there is an Islamo-democratic. They are the fascists. They are the people that are trying to destroy this constitutional republic. And they are constantly continuing to say it's the right when the right is not the one pulling the triggers.
That's because the left, their greatest strength is projection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They project all the time. If you want to know what the left's doing, hear what they're saying that the right's doing.
Correct.
They're accusing you.
That's one of those things my dad told me when I was young. If you want to know what your enemy's up to, look and see what they're accusing you of, because that's what they're doing.
Yeah, that's what they're up to.
You know, again, I'm not in the military. I've never been in the military, but we have all of our, as you said, our special forces. We have our CIA, FBI, and all this. I cannot believe that we have not known for years that there was an agenda within the Islamic communist socialist parties trying to destroy our country. I can't believe that they didn't know the Chinese were shipping however many thousands of women over here to have babies. And now we have over 1 million some odd Chinese people born in America that actually live in China.
Right.
I can't believe that our intelligence didn't know this. And if they did know this, then they're a part of the cabal as well.
Yep.
They're all behind trying to bring down the country. So then you're like, it's got to be a spirit, because no one in their right mind would work to destroy their own people.
And that's the part that I say we probably should get into the next part, because there is a spiritual blindness.
There is.
That is happening upon this nation. It's the only in Europe, for that matter, that people have closed their eyes to the evilness of Islam, the evilness of communism, and they're allowing it to take foothold. And that's why I say the problem and the mistake that we've made with the support for Trump is we've thought it was a political fight, and it is a spiritual fight. And we need to take it more to the house of God than to the
All right, we're going to take a break at the bottom of the hour. Do we still have Bill O'Reilly today, or is it going to be news? We don't know yet. Okay. Well, it is O'Reilly. Okay, so he's going to be with us until Friday. I guess Friday we'll switch over to the news. Well, here's Bill.
This whole year.
Bill O'Reilly here, and I'm warming up. Stand by for the O'Reilly Update Morning Edition. But first, trapped in a timeshare, fees rising every year while availability shrinks, resorts making exiting nearly impossible. That's why I partner only with Lone Star Transfer. This family-owned company is transparent, honest, respectful. They have helped more than 40,000 owners exit legally and ethically through a simple guaranteed process. No surprise fees, no unused vacations, no stress. Please visit LoneStarTransfer.com, or you can call 855-551-7066. Tell them Bill sent you today. On this Monday, did you catch the story about the federal courts in California ruling that ICE agents do not have to identify themselves to the public? That was a pretty shocking ruling, because the anti-ICE crew in California and other states They want the public to know who's working for the immigration authorities. They want that. Now, everybody knows that you could be easily doxxed, DOXXED, if people knew who you were. They could find out where you live, what's your family like. And some nut might decide to take some revenge on the ICE agents. That's why they wear masks and they don't have ID cards on their chest, because they're being protected in a very volatile age. Now, that makes sense to me. Public safety cuts both ways, right? I don't want ICE agents going around beating the hell out of people. I think that's wrong. Those shootings in Minneapolis never should have happened. Yes, part of it was the perpetrators were panicked by the actions of the protesters, but shouldn't happen. You want to add to the problem by giving loons access to individual ICE agents? Thank God the court ruled this way. Back in a moment. Homeowners, when is the last time you checked your home title? Scammers are everywhere and they're targeting your equity. With just a single forged document, they can file at the county. So don't wait until it's too late. Find out if you are already a victim today. Please go to HomeTitleLock.com. Use the promo code BILL to get a free title history report, plus a free trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. That is the Morning O'Reilly Update. More analysis later on.
If things don't change, can you imagine America in 20 years? Scary thought, isn't it? The good news is we have the power to take our nation back. Stay right here for all the information you need. 101.1, The Answer.
Whether retirement's just around the corner or already here, it's common to be overwhelmed. That's where Total Wealth with David Lucas can help. Utilizing their signature Thrive planning process, they'll work together with you to identify and resolve your concerns, allowing you to fully pursue your passions and enjoy life. Because a successful retirement isn't just how much you save, it's the quality of life you live. Schedule a free evaluation now at TotalWealth.com. While you're at the website, download the free guide to Social Security. It'll help answer a lot of your questions. Go to TotalWealth.com or call 501-382-8800. 501-382-8800. One more time, go to TotalWealth.com or call 501-382-8800. That's 501-382-8800. 501-382-8800. Go to TotalWealth.com.
Investment advisory services offered through Lucas Total Wealth, an Arkansas registered investment advisor. Arkansas Insurance License Number 161527443.
Larry Elder sees the president blazing a trail.
The Iranians hold a chokehold because people are afraid they're going to build a nuke. We haven't stopped them. Venezuela has a thug that's run the country into the ground, and we put up with it in our own hemisphere. Same thing with Cuba, and there's nothing we can do about it. Trump has walked in and said no, no, and no. That's what President Trump has done.
The Larry Elder Show, weeknights at 6, right before Hugh Hewitt at 9 on 101.1, The Answer. There's a real battle going on, not only for our future, but that of our children and grandchildren. How do we ensure they have it better than we do? One way is to keep listening to us. We're your information source in the battle. 101.1, The Answer. Dave Elswick is the conservative voice of Arkansas. And he's back. 101.1, The Answer.
All right, 7:35 on a Monday. So it's the Bible guys that are standing here instead right now. And they've locked arms. They've been talking during the break. Let me ask you guys, where's the church on all of this? What's the church need to be saying about all of this? Are we not partially responsible for a lot of this?
Well, I think the only reason why the man is still alive is because the church has been praying for him
constantly.
I mean, you don't get a shot through the ear just as the moment you turn your head because the slide that was on the screen was the wrong one. It should have been at the end, but it popped up at the very beginning. That doesn't happen unless someone is praying for you. And in the beginning, he did give credit to God. My concern right now is he just had another attempt and he didn't say anything about God protecting him. you can get so accustomed to the covering and the blessing of God on your life that you forget to give thanks.
Yes.
And but I think the reason why he's still alive is because the church is praying for him. And let me just go ahead and say this: if you're listening and you're a believer, you are commanded in the scriptures to pray for those that are in authority, that you might live a quiet and peaceable life.
Mm-hmm.
And if every time you see Donald Trump pop up on the television, you get all angry and all upset and bitter, that means you're not praying for him, because you're not at peace and you're not quiet. You're all churned up on the inside.
That's your spirit.
Yeah, you need to be praying for those in authority, that we might live a quiet and peaceable life. And if you think the whole world is turning upside down and you're not quiet and peaceable, you're not praying enough.
Look, I'm one of the guys that'll be very vocal about how nasty and vicious he is, and the way he attacks people unnecessarily, and condemning and calling them names, and it's ridiculous. However, you cannot deny the things that he's done for the church and the things that he's allowed. I mean, even as we speak, he sent special ops guys to go to Nigeria.
Yeah.
And what president does, to not for political, but to protect Christians.
Yeah.
All right. So he understands the value of Christianity and its effect on the American culture, and how it brought America to the greatness that it is, or was, I should say. So he understands that. And that is the only thing that will restore the nation, is a rebirthed church. That some will say things like the Church of Laodicea, the Church of Lukewarmness, is where we could be at as a nation. And I agree with that there has to be a real awakening, a real revival in this nation. And when we say we want to make America great again, what made America great was the gospel. That's what made America great.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do not have God-fearing men and women running a nation, then they will do what they have done, and they get corrupt and they get greedy, and they're only caring about themselves or their own political parties. And that was the thing that Washington said he feared the most, was the fact that the people would divide amongst their parties instead of being unified about the Constitution. And all of those men gathered together and prayed for God's guidance and hand upon this nation. Until that happens, this will continue. Until we are a God-fearing nation again, this will continue.
Well, what did Adam say? He says the Constitution was only written for a moral and religious people, and it's wholly and it's wholly incompatible to the government of any other.
Yep.
And when he said religious, he meant Christian. So so that's who it was written for. And guess what? If you're not a Christian, if you're an atheist, an agnostic, if you are some other religion, you ain't going to make this thing work.
Yeah. People forget that. Like when the Marine Corps song from the halls of Mount Zuma to the shores of Tripoli was when they sent people to fight the Islamic Barbary pirates. There was a war, and Jefferson and many of those made comments about Islam. So this idea, and this is where I would say that it was the divine hand of God to make sure that this was not a theocracy, that it would only be by the church when the church was breathing and alive, and it was given that it would be a Christian nation. I tell the story of my wife's grandfather who was arrested for picking blackberries on Sunday in upstate New York because he violated the Sabbath. So tell me this was not a Christian nation. They may have had the Sabbath wrong, but they still had the idea that we were a God-fearing, biblically based nation and all of those kind of things. So until that happens, this is why Islam is coming into this nation. This is why Islam has gone into Europe. God has removed the protection because the church is asleep. We have too many ministers that only care about their name, their church, their denomination, their ministry, and they're not unified for the cause of Christ. That's what's happening to this nation. It's not because of Donald Trump. It's not because of Barack Obama or Biden or anybody else. It's because the church has fallen asleep at the wheel and have been consumed and become too worldly.
I think originally the 13 colonies, each one of them, you had to be an actual church. You had to be a Christian to even be able to participate in.
And Jefferson never said a word about that.
No, he didn't.
Never. All he did not want to happen is in this country for us to have, quote, the Church of England.
Right.
That's what he did not want to happen. And that's what he was talking about in the Danbury letter that he wrote to the Baptists.
And rightfully so, because we can't even get together in churches and denominations to have a meeting together. How on earth could we run a nation? It's not meant to be a theocracy.
Right.
There's way too much division about things that are not salvific. So we don't want it. We just allow us, and this is why I would if I was in charge for a day, I would strip the government down probably by 80% and put everything back to the states, which is what they originally intended. Because at the local level, you can control those things.
Honestly, the president was supposed to be wasn't even supposed to be forefront in our mind. He was supposed to be like this faint echo.
Right.
He was supposed to be our local, state and local government. That's what we dealt with. That's how we ran ourselves and took care of ourselves and made our own laws and took care of ourselves. The federal government was supposed to be out of our business, not even really a strong presence in our mind to begin with.
Well, it's been a war ever since we became a nation about whether we're going to have a strong, centralized government or not. I mean, that's been fought over time and time and time. That's why the 10th Amendment's there.
Well, that's why the Civil War happened as well. It was really a war over states' rights to choose. And so
there's a command structure within the military that they call centralized control, decentralized execution. And that's exactly how the government was set up. There was a centralized control in Washington, D.C., but it was supposed to be executed at the local level. And that's what's supposed to happen in the military conflicts. You got the guys and the generals at the top, but they released their lower level commanders to go do the orders, but it's still controlled at that level. It's not meant to be this single entity. And this is where you could argue that there was a little bit of conspiracy where they were trying to centralize that into just a handful of people. But I forget who said it, but there was a statement that said the republic will last until the electorate realizes that they can vote themselves money or something like that out of the coffers.
It's called a Tytler cycle. Okay. It's a 200-year cycle of nations that basically shows that once the people realize they can vote themselves, he said large S, then eventually it begins to decline.
Yep. Yeah, it was Jefferson who said that.
Okay.
He said democracy will die when the people can start, voting money out of the public treasury.
And that's what they've been doing. That's what the leaders in the Congress and Senate have been doing forever. How long? And making themselves millionaires by all the other kickbacks and quote unquote non-insider trading that is insider trading.
All right. So let's turn back to Scott, since he's the senior pastor here. What do you take as being really important during this time to you that you should be preaching, from the pulpit? I mean, I hear a lot of preachers say, Jesus told us to go out and share the good news or the gospel, and they're doing that. But you were just talking during a break, and you were right when you said that, the prophets were out there railing and ripping it up one side and down the other. That's the reason Saul lost his kingdom, is what we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, if one of the things that the ministers do is they follow the legacy of the ministers that were before them, look at what they did. You can look at every prophet in the scripture, and what they're doing is the message they're preaching is dealing with what is happening at the moment, at the time, and then also laying out a prophetic consequence of what's going to happen if you don't actually do what they say. And so we've got into this place where we teach generic messages that have no applicability to the life and time that we're living in. I even mentioned on Sunday, you could drop yourself into a lot of churches and you would think that you were listening to a sermon from the 1980s or 1990s. And the gospel never changes. That's for sure. But the applicability of what you're doing in the day needs to have some relevancy to what's actually happening at that particular moment. When our nation was founded, George Washington said, we won the revolution because of the Black Robe Regiment. And the Black Robe Regiment was the ministers who used to wear black robes in their pulpits that would preach the gospel, and they'd also preach the gospel relevant to what was happening in the country at the time. I think we're in another moment where the ministers have to acknowledge what is happening on the ground. I used to say this. I used to live in Europe. I lived in Europe for half of my life. I used to tell the people when I come to the States, I'd say, I live in the future, and I'm back here in the past, and I'm going to tell you what the future looks like if we don't change. And everybody said to me, that'll never happen. We're America. We have the Mayflower Compact. That's not where we're going. And everything I said was going to happen is happening right now. And it's because people were unwilling to acknowledge the reality that was on the ground and what was happening. And I said this during the break. I showed my church images of Syria and Lebanon and Egypt and Iraq and Iran from the 1960s and 70s. It looked like you're looking at pictures of somewhere here in America.
Iran was amazing.
It was amazing. And I would like to know, when these nations were falling one after the other to Islam, how many messages were being preached in the churches saying, listen, this is what's happening in the world. Let's pray. Let's engage in the spirit. Let's have some spiritual warfare. Let's stand our ground. Let's reach out to our brothers and sisters. Nothing. When MacArthur said, we just conquered Japan, give me 10,000 missionaries, and the church coughed up from America a few hundred. We weren't ready for the moment because nobody's talking about what's actually happening on the ground. And even Hito went to, I mentioned this last week, even Hito went to MacArthur and said, say the word and I'll tell all my people to convert to Christianity. And MacArthur said, well, it's a hard thing. You can't do that. So no. Now we have 1% or less that are Christians in Japan. I would have said, do it.
Right.
At least everybody would have heard the gospel.
The heart will come later.
We have been behind the movement far too long. So the ministers need to be preaching, of course, the gospel. But I think the gospel is also a bigger picture than what we've actually talked about. It's a lot broader in its context. But preach the gospel, yes, but also preach how the gospel interacts with the society that we live in.
Daniel, everybody would love to talk about the book of Daniel from a prophetic standpoint. But Daniel was written in Babylon, and he was dealing with the political
when he
leaders.
was a slave.
Correct. And he was dealing with the political leaders. And so one of the things that we miss, especially about interpreting prophecy, is the geopolitical fulfillment of prophecy. And every single one of those events, and they were all dealing with the political leaders of the day. I mean, even Jonah, for crying out loud, was going to a secular nation and
tell them to cut it out.
Right, and tell them to cut it out.
And was hoping that they wouldn't listen to it.
Right.
He had attitude problem.
But here's the other part. I think there's been a house cleaning that's been going on in the church. And we haven't been able to. And one of the things I pray for is that in Ezekiel or Jeremiah or an Amos or somebody would rise up, or in our day, a Ravenhill or somebody like that would just call the nations back to repentance. But there are quite a few guys that are getting in trouble. They can't keep their pants up and they can't keep their hands out of the money jars. And so it's kind of hard to be a voice of righteousness and holiness when the place that's supposed to be the voice of holiness and righteousness isn't.
Is corrupt.
And so there has to be a house cleaning, but we also need those guys to be raised up and to have a voice and to call for righteousness and holiness and repentance and getting back to living that way.
I think it requires a minister not to be afraid of his people.
Yeah.
Because how many churches, when Obama lit up the White House with the pride colors and the Supreme Court changed the rule about marriage, how many pastors stood up and condemned what was happening in the White House and called out that sin?
Yeah.
I know we did, but I don't know how many others else would do it.
I'll never forget, relatively early in starting Ahava, I had preached something and someone caught me after services. Aren't you worried about offending someone? And I don't remember who it was, but I looked him dead in the eye and went, no. If the gospel offends you, that's not my problem.
That's what it's supposed to do.
If it offended you, that is not a me problem. That's a you problem.
And I've told this many times before, but whenever Trump got first elected, the word says to pray for those in authority. I've done this at every election. I had the people stand up and let's pray for our new leader.
Yep.
And while my eyes were closed and my head was bowed, 40 people walked out of church that Sunday morning. Security told me afterwards. 40 people just walked out while you were praying.
For Trump.
Yeah.
That doesn't surprise me.
We're doing the word. We're seeking God. We're praying for somebody, and people can't handle that. Yeah.
I think I said maybe on the break or whatever. Jesus said that if you grab the plow and look back, you're not worthy of me.
Right.
And that's another aspect besides the preachers that haven't been preaching the things we just were talking about. We have a people who just want to go to heaven. They do not want to become disciples. They don't want to discipline their life.
Right.
And when you call them out, and I think that this, I think this is why I talk about our group, because we say that, this is not the place for you if you're just going to come in and be kind of a laissez-faire about it. And I run a lot of people off because of that mentality.
No, you can say we. I'm not afraid to offend either.
Well, I didn't want to lump the entire congregation into it, because
I just pray and people leave.
Right. And
that's a power right there.
But you know what?
The Holy Ghost, I got the power to run people off. Does that count?
Billy and I often quote the verse. The scariest verse in all the Bible is not anything about Sodom and Gomorrah or the 10 plagues or the book of Revelation. It is in Matthew 7, where Jesus says, not everybody who calls me Lord, Lord will enter the kingdom of heaven. He said, but in that day I will say to you, depart from me, I never knew you. And they're going to say to me, but we did all of these wonderful things in your name. There are people who say that they believe that Jesus is the Son of God, but he's going to say, I do not know you, because their life does not reflect what they say their mouth says.
Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and you don't do the things I've told you to do?
You got to do it. You can't just believe it. And we have changed it into say this prayer. And as my typical sarcastic way, I say, we burp and we say it sounds like Jesus and now we're saved. and there's no change in our lives. And that's the problem.
Yeah.
And so if you are an occasional Christian listening on this while you're driving down the road, you might want to pull over because I'm getting ready to offend you. You're part of the problem. If you're not praying, reading your Bible, you are not consistent in the church, but yet you are complaining about the things that are happening on the left, and you are not rallying, supporting your pastor, you're not rallying, supporting the church, you are part of the problem. So you can claim conservatism, cultural Christianity, but until you realize that our job is to serve the King of Kings in this life, in this place that he has planted us, then don't complain. Don't sit on and listen to Mark Levin or Dave Elswick or any other conservative podcast and go, oh, well, we just need more Republican. No, we need the church to become alive and ignited again. And that alone is the only thing that will fix this nation. So if you haven't been to church, get your butt to church.
That's the reason this show that you're listening to right now is always the first show that we have.
First show of the week.
My show, because I've always told you that you have a soul, you have a spirit, you have a body, and you cannot refuse to take care of your spirit and your soul and expect to get it right, because you won't get it right. All right, we got to get a final break in. Let's do that. 8 minutes till 8 o'clock. Well, first hour, as usual, Val, it's gone past us. Here on the Dave Elswick Show. Stick around. We got more for you.
There's danger out there. It lurks on highways and quiet neighborhood streets. It's more likely to kill you than a shark, and more terrifying than the biggest snake. Distracted driving claims lives every day. Every notification, swipe, social post, video, or selfie while driving risks your life. So while you might think public speaking or the zombie apocalypse is scary, what's really terrifying and even deadly is distracted driving. Eyes forward. Don't drive distracted. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Retirement can be scary, but only if you're not prepared. That's why AARP created thisispretirement.org. Because unless you've already retired, you're in pretirement, and you still have time to plan. Learn about retirement savings options, potential tax breaks, and how you can build savings over time. Visit thisispretirement.org for free resources to help you customize your action plan and feel the retirement fear disappear. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Hello, KDXE listeners. Join me Saturdays, 8 a.m. for a new program about investing in physical gold and silver. The show, Johnny on the Spot, provides valuable insight about buying and selling physical precious metals. Brought to you by CMI Gold and Silver, the nation's oldest bullion firm, serving clients nationwide since 1973. Saturday mornings, 8 a.m. on 101.1 FM The Answer. And check us out online at cmigs.com.
Did you hear Congressman Bruce Westerman on the Dave Elswick Show?
But you're still dealing with Fourth Amendment when you're talking about how FISA can be used. And this is the Section 702 of FISA, what we're reauthorizing. So still a lot of evaluating to do before that vote happens. More congressional oversight. You've got Congressman Crawford as chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Tom Cotton running the Senate Intelligence Committee. And you got a Republican administration that's not going to abuse the system. And also, we do have classified briefings, and they show us definitive data of how they stop terrorist attacks and other things using it. So there's a lot to weigh in the decision on whether they're really using it as intended, and should you let them have that power, or do you put people's life at risk by totally taking it away? I can tell you it's not an easy decision to make on this one.
Don't miss Congressman Westerman, Wednesday mornings at 7:30 on the Dave Elswick Show, 101.1. The Answer. Now back to the Dave Elswick Show, 101.1. The Answer.
All right, we're finishing up the first hour now. We move into the final segment of the Dave Elswick Show for 7 o'clock. The power panel is coming up in the next hour, and Wayne will be here, and Paul will be here, and Chris will be here. So we'll have the three members of the power panel plus me, Dave Elswick. I'll be with you as well. And we'll talk about we'll talk about this, the attempt on the president's life. And we can talk as well to people about why do you try to deny that these are people that are really trying to kill President Trump, and instead jump aboard all the conspiracists who are saying it's all, it's, what is it, black flag stuff that, you're running. This is not really happening. They're gaslighting you. They're telling you, what you see is not what you should believe.
You know what?
Exactly what they're telling you.
You know what the real source of that is? The real source of that is a lack of authentic relationship with Christ, which leads to you feeling unimportant, and they latch onto something that will give them a voice and make them feel important. Almost every problem in the world, when you look at it, it will come back to that. I don't feel important, therefore I need to do something that makes me important in someone's eyes, even if that's out there echoing ridiculous things. They have a community now. They have some place where they're fitting in. They're having some place where they're patted on the back for their proper ideas. Almost all of that leads back to that. And we have a real problem in the United States with that right now, that we have so many youth who are completely disconnected because of that little black box we carry around in our phones. They're so disconnected from people that anything that causes them to get that dopamine hit and the validation from their peers, they will latch onto. I think it would be really easy these days, and forgive me for saying this, I think it would be really easy these days to start a cult. I really do. There are so many people craving that sort of attention. I think it'd probably be easier now than it's ever been in our history to start a cult. So, and not that I intend to start a cult.
And also, you mentioned that about looking for validation and being a part of a community. And now you have people who are actually saying, I'm going to have a AI girlfriend.
Yeah.
I'm going to have my relationship with a virtual thing. And now there's not even people involved. And now you have an AI who can actually sound like a compassionate human being. What was that one kid who actually the AI told him to, go ahead and kill yourself, and I'll be waiting for you on the other side to be with you. And he did it.
For you. Yeah.
And so it's.
I poked some of that about 6 or 8 months ago, just so that, because I was hearing things, how far advanced is this stuff at this point? If you're willing to pay a couple of bucks a month, because the first hit's free, but after that we got to get your $10 a month. It is absolutely ridiculous. The AI sending you videos of itself and pictures of itself and sending you text messages throughout the day, and far more attention than you're ever going to get from another human being. So yeah, of course it sticks that hook right in you and drags you towards it. So
I was just sitting there scrolling, and I saw some AI thing pop up, and I just paused and I said, and I knew I made a mistake when I clicked on it, because I was going to show Casey. I said, look at this. And it was like a girl in a bikini. I said, that's AI.
Yeah.
That's not a
real
woman.
person. Yeah.
That's and now you put what you were just saying about communication and stuff like that. And so now they've got them a nice talking, beautiful girlfriend, boyfriend, or whatever. And the really sick thing is they're starting to put those in bots. And I'll let your mind stop right there.
And get used to it, because China has a regular bot that looks like a human being.
Yeah, Japan is the one who's really, there should have been a third son. I'm just saying. Japan is really driving that market, and part of that has to do with the loneliness epidemic in Japan right now. But Japan is wild right now when it comes to robotics and AI.
They are giving all of the older people there, they're giving them AI for companionship, because they don't have enough people.
Okay, with that, we'll finish up our segment with the Bible guys. Appreciate you guys coming in. Scott, thank you. Steve, Billy, all of you for being here on the Dave Elswick Show, because we fight against principalities and things that aren't of this world. Yeah, I do believe in a multiverse here on the Dave Elswick Show.
In a world of noise, truth cuts through. This is 101.1, The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk. KDXE, Kamak Village, Little Rock.
Breaking news this hour from Town Hall. I'm Rich Thomason. Investigators have quite a bit to work with as they piece together the background of the suspect in Saturday's shooting outside a Washington hotel ballroom where the White House Correspondents' Dinner was going on, with President Trump in attendance.
Authorities uncovered what had been described as numerous anti-Trump social media posts linked to the suspect, Cole Thomas Allen, a 31-year-old tutor and amateur video game developer from California. The suspect was taken into custody at the dinner on Saturday night. Allen legally owned a semi-automatic pistol and a shotgun. He is believed to have travelled by train from California to Chicago and then on to Washington, where he checked himself in as a guest at the hotel where the gala dinner was held.
Correspondent Luke Harris says Allen is due to make his first court appearance today. The only Republican senator standing in the way of President Trump's pick to lead the Fed says he's now ready to vote yes.
Republican Senator Tom Tillis of North Carolina had effectively blocked confirmation of Kevin Warsh, President Donald Trump's pick as the new chairman of the Federal Reserve. Tillis tells NBC's Meet the Press now that the U.S. Attorney General for the District of Columbia has dropped the investigation into current Fed Chair Jerome Powell and the Fed's multi-billion-dollar building renovations, he'll no longer stall Warsh's nomination in the GOP-controlled Senate Banking Committee.
I am prepared to move on with the confirmation of Mr. Warsh. I think he's going to be a great Fed chair.
Tillis says he felt like there were prosecutors in D.C. who thought the investigation would force Powell to leave before his term ends May 15th, and that any building cost overruns President Donald Trump had criticized have not risen to a criminal prosecution. Donna Warder, Washington.
On Wall Street, the Dow futures are down 42 points. NASDAQ futures off 2, and the S&P futures down 3 points ahead of this morning's opening bell. More on these stories, townhall.com.
Hey, I'm Kirk Cameron. Is health insurance eating up your budget for 2026? If you're looking for ways to better steward your finances, consider this: Christian Healthcare Ministries. It's a health insurance alternative at half the cost. Join CHM today by visiting chministries.org/wellness. While insurance companies tell you when to join, what to pay, and where to go, CHM is different. As a ministry, CHM allows you to share the burden of medical bills with other Christians. You can enroll, switch programs, or leave at any time. Christian Healthcare Ministries. It's a world of difference. CHM has 4 flexible programs. You can pick any certified doctor, surgeon, or hospital that you want for eligible care. So make the switch. Take your paycheck back from health insurance this year. Join CHM today by visiting chministries.org/wellness. That's chministries.org/wellness.
With your news flash, I'm Trey Westerberg, 101.1 The Answer. Receive your dental implants and new smile in as little as 1 day with Little Rock's dental implant specialist, Dr. Samuel F. Jurek, DDS. Schedule your consultation now at jurekdds.com. The U.S. Geological Survey says a magnitude 2.4 earthquake was recorded Saturday night near the Missouri-Arkansas border, about 3 miles east of Diamond City, Arkansas. Officials say it was shallow and no reports of it being felt have been received. Arkansas State University says a woman was shot in the leg early Sunday morning during a gathering at Unity Park on campus. Officials say the injury is not life-threatening, and police believe it was an isolated incident with no ongoing threat to the campus. A proposed Pine Bluff ordinance would set minimum rental housing standards requiring safe and sanitary conditions and allowing city inspections and fines for violations. Supporters say it strengthens tenant protections, while some landlords argue it could place unfair burdens on property owners. I'm Trey Westerberg with your news flash on 101.1 The Answer.
With your sports flash, I'm John Thayer on 101.1 The Answer. On the NASCAR Cup Series yesterday, Carson Hocevar won for the first time in his career. Chris Buescher was second. Alex Bowman was third. Baseball action yesterday. After a rain delay, the Kansas City Royals rallied to beat the Angels at Kauffman Stadium 11-9. Lane Thomas hit a walk-off home run to win it in the 10th. For Kansas City, the Royals are now 11-17 on the year. The Cardinals fell at home. They lost to the Seattle Mariners 3-2. The Cardinals, with the loss, are now 14-13 on the season. The Cardinals are back in action tonight in Pittsburgh against the Pirates. Dustin May will get the start. Northside Power, your trusted name when the power goes out. Generators isn't something they do. It's all they do. Find out more at northsidepower.com. I'm John Thayer with your Sports Flash on 101.1 The Answer.
Mike Gallagher sees a lack of respect.
As we've got ICE at our nation's airports, Congress still deadlocked. They went home Friday. They went on vacation, which is one of the most remarkable acts of thumbing their nose at the American people I've ever seen. The truth is, the Democrats don't want success in funding DHS.
The Mike Gallagher Show, weeknights at 11 on 101.1 The Answer.
All right, into the second hour we go, 8 o'clock. I want Val to join us here for a moment. Bring us up to date on the story about the shooting of at ASU.
So apparently there was a shooting at overnight over the weekend, and 4 people were injured, and it was at Unity Park. Imagine that, which is in Jonesboro, Arkansas. And I don't think anybody was killed, but it left 4 people injured. 3 were taken to the hospital with mostly minor conditions and are stable. But Todd Clark, the university's chief marketing and communications officer, of course they marketing and communication, not the police, but said a gathering was underway at Unity Park. An email alert later notified the campus community of an active shooter incident. That's my alma mater.
So a quick question: what was the get together about?
Let's see. I don't see that part yet.
Okay.
It's under investigation, and anyone with any information is asked to call Arkansas State Police at 870-935-7303. Last week there was an incident too. Over the weekend, it was reported that allegedly Turning Point USA and it was hurling racial slurs over the loudspeaker and the megaphone at students on campus. And there's a video out, and all I heard him say, which was really rude, I thought, was that calling people dumb. And he was like screaming at them that they were dumb. So I didn't hear any racial slurs, and I've asked the community, and after 20,000 people have viewed it, I've yet to see any confirmation that there was any racial slurs, but a lot's happening at ASU right now. It's not like it used to be. I'll tell you that. That's my alma mater. And so I got my degree in broadcasting, and I don't know what's happening down there.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood there was a shooting.
Mm-hmm.
It had something to do with ASU, this get together. I've not been able to find out what the get together was about.
I'll reach out to my sources down there and find out.
Was that the one that was at the mall? Which one was it?
No, this is at a park.
At Unity Park.
Yeah.
Now, is that on the campus?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So anyway, my question is, because I've been seeing this more and more. I told you it was going to happen, and the trans folks are getting violent now.
Mm-hmm.
They really are. So you got to be careful.
Did you see something where that might be what it was about? What made you think that?
No, it just crossed my mind.
Oh, okay.
It's just been kind of.
It's been seems kind like of a go-to thing here recently.
It seems like a lot of the people that are kind of doing some of this random shooting stuff have been.
Well, we know that they are definitely mentally impaired if they think they're a girl and they're really a boy.
Sure. No, that's obvious mental illness at that point. If that's really what they think, I mean, that's for anybody to classify that as something other than mental illness. Well, you've got some problems yourself.
We've got a problem, I think, in our nation that nobody wants to say what you're doing is wrong.
Right. They reaffirm you in your classroom.
Yeah, you're supposed to accept and affirm.
Right.
You can't look. I don't accept you that you're a girl if you're a boy. Now I'll accept this. There's something wrong with you, and that you need help, and I won't condemn you about it. But I will say that it's something that we need to really. We shouldn't be even grappling with this, to be honest.
No, it just needs to be dealt with as a mental health issue. It's something these people need help. You don't need to just kick them in the face. But the thing is, they do need some help, and they don't. And if you tell them, yeah, I know you used to be a boy, now you're a girl. If you coddle them in that and say, yes, indeed, you are now. Well, you're helping them to be marginalized. You're hurting them. You're not helping them.
Because that's where they get mad at you now, is if they say, I'm trans, I'm a girl, and you look at them and you go, no, you're not a girl. When you tell them the truth, they
Right.
will lash out at you.
Right.
Definitely.
Well, and that's the thing is that
Or they'll say, well, my truth tells me I'm a girl, and I look at them and say, dude, there's the truth, and then there's nothing else.
and there's delusion. But the
That's
and
right.
the thing
My
that
truth.
right, their truth is not this. But they need help, and coddling them in their delusion is not helping them. You're not helping them to be less marginalized. You're actually helping them to be more marginalized. I think the maybe a cleaner way to look at this, in a way that people are less prejudiced towards, is if someone comes out and says the Earth is flat, they will be marginalized. And the best way to keep them from being marginalized is to help them understand the Earth isn't round. The Earth is round.
Okay, apparently some folks online are saying it was a hazing, so I don't know if
hazing.
It was, that's what I'm reading, that people are talking, just they don't, people don't really know, but if people were there, they're saying it was some sort of a hazing incident, because it was at after midnight. But another issue is that a lot of folks are saying, so one person says, can an investigation please look into the glitch that many students didn't receive an emergency text or an email? So, and yes, the students I have talked to are all signed up for text alerts. That's an issue that I would think is very important. If there actually was a very active shooter, they need to make sure that everyone's getting those texts.
Okay, so
Sounds like some
let me go with
aggressive
Chris
hazing.
and ask Chris your take on the president. Again, somebody wanted to assassinate him.
Yeah.
What's your thought about it?
I mean, we keep seeing more and more of it.
Pull that mic up towards you.
Why do we keep seeing so much more of it? And it's this polarization that we have, I believe. Everything is left versus right, hardcore, instead of debating topics. People's inability or refusal to communicate is creating these problems, and what's driving these people to believe that they can do something like that, to believe that they can pull it off. That's terrible.
Wayne?
I think that I agree with you, is that as we've gotten into a tribalism type scenario, and transcends both political parties. Because you see the division even within the parties, both the Democrat Party as well as a Republican Party, and then you got the Libertarian. But it's turning into a tribalism issue, and people are seeing it because they also don't know which way to go. That's why you see, I think, a lot of people being quiet. They're just letting things just, I don't want to say anything about that because I'm gonna have to choose sides.
Right.
It makes sense.
Yes, sir.
And that's where the tribalism comes in. We've got to get out of that. It's like you said just prior to this, they were talking about this is, you're going to have to get back to God. You're going to have to get back to how our country was. And until you come back to that, it's going to be something else. So one common thing, I think I talked to a person that we all know real well, and she I was up in Cabot, and I went to eat lunch with her. She said, can you come eat lunch with me? I want to talk to you about something. I said, sure. And I says, how do we get people on the same page? And I said, it's easy. You have to get back to Christianity. You have to get back to the basics, because everybody is on that same level, just about. 99% of the people here in Arkansas are on that same level. So you got to start there. Then you can start building it back. But as long as you stay up at this level where you're having division and chaos and stuff, you're not going to get anything, because they're yelling at each other. And it's like you said, until they start talking to each other rather than talking with each other rather than talking at each other, then we'll start to see some progress. But there's too many out there have their own individual, selfish, self-centered things. I want to protect my job. I want to protect my and then it's natural. I want to protect my job. I want to protect my community. I want to protect my friends. I want to protect, like that. Instead of actually saying, let's talk about the issues.
And then you got people like Kamala Harris coming in here even Saturday, which this shooter donated lots of money to. her campaign, you know, how much you can. So her whole speech was focused on Donald Trump. Why?
Can you make anything out of her speeches?
No, it's all about Donald Trump. Like it literally, she talks about the speech delivered, you know, she was at the Democratic Party's Fisher Shackle for dinner in Little Rock Saturday. And, you know, she starts out her speech with, now you may have heard that there's another dinner happening tonight. It's called the White House Correspondents' Dinner, where they're raising a glass to Donald Trump. Why do you continue to focus on this man? And then she talks about how he's destroyed our economy. I'm like, you did that. It's completely gaslighting everyone. That's what she does.
I agree, Val.
Paul, your thoughts about the assassination attempts?
So there's a lot of angst right now, and I think a lot of people are angry kind of on a bandwagon type basis, not so much based on principle. I think most people are not ideological in their approach to things. And their party in a lot of cases would have been supporting some of the things that are going on right now in the other party, and now they're mad about it. And then some of the I think some of the abortion crowd and the LGBTQ crowd are pretty fired up, and they're pretty confused. And I don't know which one's more hostile and vicious, but I think both of those crowds are potentially very dangerous. The abortion people they're inherently violent. That's what they want to kill. That's what they want to do. So they're and many of them have already killed people, and so I think that hardens them to the willingness to commit murder. And then you have the people, especially the transgender community, they're already mentally ill, and so I think that makes them extra prone to flying off the handle and just going berserk and potentially murdering people. And so I think you've got two problems there on the left that are potential hotbeds for disaster of this nature.
All right, 8:18, our first break, and then we'll be back here on the Dave Elswick Show, 1011, The Answer.
What if you could take 101.1 The Answer with you everywhere? You can. Download the 101.1 The Answer app and stay connected to the voices you trust, live and on demand. Wake up with Dave Elswick. Stay sharp with Doc Washburn. And hear from national voices like Chris DeGaulle, Scott Jennings, Hugh Hewitt, Larry Elder, and Mike Gallagher. Breaking news, bold opinions, local insight, national perspective, all in one place, all in your pocket, at work, in the car, on the go. If it matters to Arkansas and America, you'll hear it on 101.1 The Answer. Plus, stream us live anywhere. Catch up on podcasts and never miss a moment. Search 101.1 The Answer in your app store and download it today. 101.1 The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk.
We asked parents who adopted teens to share their journey.
We just kind of knew from the beginning that we were family.
They showcased a sense of love that I never had before. I mean, he's not only my parent, he's like my best friend.
At the end of the day, it's all been worth it. I wouldn't change a thing about our lives.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. Visit adoptuskids.org to learn more. Brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council. We asked parents who adopted teens to share their journey.
When I met both of them, it was like my missing pieces were found. Like it was just like an instant, these are my kids. If you're considering adopting a teen, just do it. Kids need families. I don't care the age. Everybody deserves a family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. Visit adoptuskids.org to learn more. A message brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
This radio station is always on, but sometimes you need more content that you can take with you anywhere. That's why we invented the SalemPodcastNetwork.com. You'll find all the great hosts on this radio station, plus a few more, like Charlie Kirk, Dinesh D'Souza, Trish Regan, Jenna Ellis, and Dennis and Julie. There's literally no end to what we can teach you. It's like radio on demand, and just like radio, it's always on. Go find out what you're missing. Download the app, SalemPodcastNetwork.com. 101.1, The Answer. The Dave Elswick Show is back. 101.1, The Answer.
We continue on the Dave Elswick Show in the power panel in the studio right now. Chris Phillips is here. He's a political consultant. Local politics is what he's doing. Nothing on the national level, but local politics. And to be honest, the early founding fathers, they would expect you to be more involved with your local politics than, quote, your political party. I mean, Washington, we mentioned this in the first hour, Washington warned us that you shouldn't, just follow a political party and take them at point blank, whatever they say.
Blindly follow them.
Yeah, it doesn't. That's not smart, and that it was a dangerous thing.
Politics shouldn't have been so national. I mean, I think part of what has made it to where that national politics are governing so many little things is that communication has become so much easier, and you can get orders from Washington in 4 minutes as opposed to 2 months if you're in California. And so I think that's part of what has made it easier for the federal government to micromanage and then just overreach. But so more politics should have been local. I think that death penalty cases ought to be handled locally. It shouldn't be even a statewide issue. It should be a local issue. And but a lot of times those things go kind of national on some level. I guess it's not really a federal issue for murder cases, but they become very big deals and very, very drawn out, and it's no longer justice after a while.
All right, Paul Calvert, who you just heard, he's a local businessman. That's the way I like to call him. And then Wayne Beach is here as well.
The retired hayseed.
Okay, yeah. Here's your opportunity. Just you offer what you think's going on about all this assassination. Not only people trying to kill the president, but just the Donald Trump syndrome that's out there.
Derangement syndrome.
Yeah, I think is what you were talking about the previous hour, that there's so much misinformation out there that nobody's doing any research on their own. They're just they're talking on platitudes, and they're going with it. Whatever sounds the mantra is locally, like the pedophile issue or the war issue. They don't understand why you're going there, and we need more of the why explained to explain to people. Why are we doing this? So you have to look back at history, and people don't know anything about history. Old people do, like you and I, Dave. We're from the Stone Age. We're born back when rocks are still soft.
Yeah, I gotta pick out my tablets, at night and read them in bed.
But I see so many people that and listen to people the way they talk. They don't know what they're talking about half the time. They're just going with whatever buzzword is going on, and they're throwing it out there, and they're going with it. That he's a pedophile, or he's a fascist, or whatever. People don't even know what fascism is. They don't understand what's out there in the world. They haven't seen the rest of the world like you and I have.
Well, it makes sense that they don't watch any documentaries at all. All you got to do is turn on Netflix, and they've got plenty of documentaries dealing with fascism that's on there, talking about Hitler, talking about the Nazis, talking about the secret police, and the whole 9 yards.
They don't even know what Hitler did.
Mm-hmm.
They don't even know how he controlled a nation. They don't understand that. They don't understand why we're having a problem with the Shiites, the Muslim Shiites over in Iran. They don't understand that since 1979. But since then, they don't understand that scenario or that landscape back then. You and I remember that.
Yeah.
I think you're old enough now, Paul. You got a little gray in your beard, so I imagine you know, and you do too, Chris. I'm telling you, this is a problem. We don't teach history. We don't teach civics. We don't teach the rules.
Especially if you went to school in a elementary school, middle school, or in a high school, that they taught you history through the eyes of Howard Zinn.
They teach you social studies. But part of the thing is, though, that you can't expect people to be functional adults when they grew up in very, very broken homes. I think it's just not reasonable. Some people will come out of that in spite of the terrible upbringing they have, but you can't expect the vast majority of people who grow up in broken homes to actually be functional. It's just not rational to expect that.
Especially, I think you're talking about, we get back to the individuals, is when the individuals actually are brought up in a Christian home, or a home where you're showing responsibility and accountability. I don't know how many single mothers are out there that man, I applaud them every time that have actually kept their kids out of trouble, kept them from being put in the graveyard, kept them from, and actually, spanked them, beat the heck out of them, if they're messing up, slap them upside the head, that's the way, I remember those days. But nowadays they don't do that. A lot of parents.
That's abuse, Wayne. In 2026, that's abuse.
That can be used.
A lot of child rearing.
That's okay. I'm not worried about it. I'm old enough, there's something being old, there's reason I'm old.
Sir.
But the reality is that boys especially need fathers in their homes, and so many of them don't have them. And to expect excellence is just not rational.
Boys and daughters.
Daughters do too, but boys especially, I think. And I think that's one of the problems that we see, is that girls can learn how to be women from other women, but boys can't learn how to be men from women, effectively.
But the model of how a woman is treated, she uses that.
Sure.
That father image to actually.
How her father treats her mother.
That's the way you treat your mother, right? And he's kind of the guy that kind of keeps them in line. There's that thing. My wife said she's always afraid. She was more afraid of her daddy than anything, but her daddy doesn't get on to her as much, but he just had to be there. That's the thing, is that she knew that it was an issue. Well, same thing with me. I knew my dad was there. He didn't ever, he didn't whoop me that any time, but I'll tell you what, I knew that he was stronger than my mama. Even though my mama, she spanked me in the circles, held one hand up and just put me in circles around like that. And I'd look like an Indian going, ooh, like that. I mean, I'd be crying. But anyway, I remember that we don't spank our kids anymore. We don't discipline our kids.
Well, a lot of times people drug them instead. They give them Ritalin or some other type of psychotic drugs, psychotropic drugs, or antidepressants or whatever else, instead of actually providing them with education on self-control, discipline on self-control.
And I think, Paul, that's one of the biggest problems now with the mass shootings. I was talking about it earlier offline, but I still think that the psychotropic drug issues, where we got off of disciplining our kids and actually working with them, trying to get them to do better. I think we got off of that, and we started depending on drugs for behavioral issues.
Yeah, you can drug anybody into a stupor, and they'll stop jumping around and dancing in their seats. But I mean, what have you taught them with that? You just made it impossible.
But the problem is that, Paul, is whenever you get them off of the psychotropic drugs, or they stop taking them, and they should be taking them, that's when they go south on you.
No, I think you're right. And some of these drugs, if I understand it correctly, they exhibit withdrawal symptoms if you don't continue to increase the dose. And so you've got increased dependency as the more and more you use them. And so that they're dangerous medications, I think.
Okay, as you can see on my stream right now, I'm raising my hand up.
Whoa.
That means we got to take a break. We're going to do that, and then we're going to come back. But first, we're going to get you up to date on what's going on with the news and the latest on that here on the Dave Elswick Show.
With SRN News, I'm Rich Thomason in Washington. The suspect in the latest assassination attempt on President Trump is due in court today in Washington. In an anti-Trump manifesto allegedly written by 31-year-old Cole Allen, the writer labels himself a friendly federal assassin. President Trump says all the signs of a troubled mind were there before the gunman opened fire outside a White House media dinner in the Washington Hilton. House lawmakers could vote today on a bipartisan funding package, fully funding the Department of Homeland Security to include the Secret Service. He's changing the light from red to green. GOP Senator Tom Tillis, who was holding up the president's pick to lead the Federal Reserve, now says he's ready to move ahead with a vote on confirmation. On Wall Street this morning, the opening bell just sounding, stocks starting off the day lower. More details, srnnews.com.
Progressive knows that boat days can come with unexpected problems.
It's been a tough Saturday on the lake. I ordered swim trunks in this orange cream color, but it's actually more orange auburn. Oh, and it's swimwear. I probably can't even return these.
If a real problem comes along, your boat's protected 24/7 with Progressive, so you can keep worrying about boater problems. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, not available in D.C.
Veterans and active duty service members. When your call to service ends, your mission doesn't have to. Go from GI to IT in just a few months at My Computer Career. Prepare for a high-demand career in cybersecurity, protecting people, systems, and institutions from real cyber threats. Cyber warriors are needed now. Will you answer the call? Go to mycomputercareer.edu/CWP to learn more. That's mycomputercareer.edu/CWP, an elite CompTIA certification partner. VA education benefits are available to those who qualify.
There's a real battle going on, not only for our future, but that of our children and grandchildren. How do we ensure they have it better than we do? One way is to keep listening to us. We're your information source in the battle. 101.1, The Answer.
This is Albert Mohler for townhall.com. California is governed by people whose moral sanity must be questioned. Christopher Rufo of the City Journal recently published a piece with the headline, quote, California provides sex change procedures to homeless illegal aliens. The report looked like satire. Rufo and his co-author stated, quote, we discovered not only that the shelters were housing illegal immigrants, but also that they were apparently housing a population of male to female transgender illegal aliens who had hoped to obtain gender-affirming care. And to our shock, they wrote, state and local governments are providing it, as in paying for it. It's no accident that, quote, a group of Hondurans who identified as transgender, end quote, end up in the same San Francisco homeless facility. Clearly, the word's getting out. The main point in all of this is that the transgender ideology is marching onward unabated, since yet another piece of evidence pointing to the great moral conflict of our age.
Scott Jennings fearlessly fights back against the mainstream media on the Scott Jennings podcast.
When Republicans have even a whiff of scandal, what do we hear? Resign, step down, zero tolerance. Where is the Democratic Party? Where is the outrage? Where is the moral clarity? What do we hear from cable news? Nothing.
Subscribe for free today on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or SalemPodcastNetwork.com. Here at 101.1, The Answer. We're dedicated to you. Yeah, we talk about the issues that matter most and provide unique insights so that you'll be as informed as possible. 101.1, The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk. The conservative voice of Arkansas, The Dave Elswick Show on 101.1, The Answer.
All right, back with you here in the studios of 101.1, The Answer. We are off of Rodney Parham Road and kind of right across the street from Homer's, too. They give you right next to Party Time or whatever it's called. But
Party City.
Party City. It used to be Party Time.
Yeah.
And they became Party City. So anyway, just that's where we're at now. We used to be in the tower over by the boys' Catholic high school. We're not there any longer. So if you're coming to my show to be on the air, remember that, okay? Sometimes people who they talk to folks, they forget to give them the right directions.
Mm-hmm. You have people that have been on the show a lot of times, and if they don't know they've moved addresses. Yep.
There's a lot of people. Look, I know that it's difficult. There's a lot of you that heard me on the air last week, and you go, Well, I didn't know that Dave Elswick went there. And I've been here for 13 years almost now. Yeah, I've been here for a long time, almost longer than I was at the other station I was at.
I don't know you switched stations.
Yeah, and did not know that. But that just tells me people listen to radio stations or watch TV, and they don't pay all that much attention to which one they're listening to at any given time. That's why I think the way that they do the rating system is just is a joke.
That's because if they're listening to the other one, they fall asleep halfway through it and they don't know who it is.
It's a joke.
Is that why you have so many wrecks out on the interstate?
I'm telling you.
Back of people?
Maybe putting them to sleep during the rush hour.
Chris, you were talking to Paul during the break, and you were saying that he had said something that kind of struck a chord with you.
Yeah, Wayne was saying, the discipline in homes, and I agree with him. But Paul had mentioned just disadvantaged homes, and I think that people would like to dismiss that a lot of the time. I think that you can claw your way out, you can come from the bottom, but it's just a lot harder to do that. And I agree with Paul's point on that. These kids trying to come from nothing do not have it as easy as a middle class, even, let alone someone with a little more than that.
Well, I think a lot of kids grow up knowing that stuff is wrong, but they don't know what's right. And so you've got somebody, you tell them, drugs are wrong, murder is wrong, unless it's a baby that's not born yet, and stealing is wrong. So they know that stuff is wrong or illegal, that what they've been told, but they don't know what's right.
I think they get mixed messages on even what's wrong.
I think they do
a lot of the time. I think that maybe the teacher's telling them that this is wrong, but sometimes in the home,
right? And then you have
what's around their environment.
Then you have politics, and that you have people that they can justify in their own minds to steal. They can go to the grocery store and these people are rich. I can take it. It's okay.
Right.
Well, look, I'm going to tell you something. As somebody who was on their own at 15 years old and pretty much raised themselves, I knew right from wrong. I didn't have anyone to tell me that. I told myself that. I taught myself. There's no excuse. There is no excuse. You can tell when a child is small and they know right from wrong. When you tell them certain things they can't do and they're hiding it from you when they're doing it, they know right from wrong.
Sure, they've got a conscience there.
Some kids are just not built that way.
I'm not saying it's an excuse, Val. I'm just saying that it's much harder.
It's a reality too.
It is. It's much harder for someone to come from nothing. And I promise you, they are getting mixed messages. What you tell someone is wrong and what you set the example for them is two different things.
Right. And so it may be that they grow up with mama who she sticks a candy bar in her pocket when she goes to the grocery store. And she pays for everything else, but she sticks a candy bar in her pocket. Or maybe she drinks a soft drink while she's walking to the store and just leaves it on the shelf somewhere.
Or maybe they just want it. My kid did that when he was a kid.
Sure. No,
I'd tell him something. In fact, the other day, went to Chick-fil-A took my grandbaby to Chick-fil-A. He's 4.5, right? He grabbed one of the forks out of the little thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he was trying to open it. I was like, you don't need that. Don't even waste that. We'll put that back. So we didn't open it.
Mm-hmm.
So I sit him down at the table. I'm waiting on my food. I go over there to get him. We leave because we were getting it to go. He's got his hand behind his back, like with his little hand behind his back, like hiding it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "What do you got? Don't worry about it, Grammy." That's what he tells me now.
Don't worry
about it, Grammy. I was like, "Excuse me?" I was like, "I told you." He was like, "Don't worry, it's okay, Grammy, it's okay." But at that moment, I had to teach him, when I tell you something's not okay, it's not okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I get what you're saying. So some kids don't have that. But he knew what he was doing.
Sure,
he was hiding it from me.
He was hiding it from you
because he knew what he was doing was wrong.
Well, he knew that you'd be disappointed about it, whether or not
he knew it was wrong. He knew I told him no.
But there are a lot of people. I think there's kids that probably grow up around their parents or grandparents that have this entitlement mentality as well. You're rich, we can take stuff from you.
Absolutely.
If we can get away with it. And I think that is a reality, and that it's a big corporation, it's a big business owner. It's okay to fudge a little bit.
Maybe it is the kids that grow up that are the ones that are turning out being these bad eggs, because My boys, not one time do they ever steal anything from me. They raid my car of change. They'd never steal from me, ever. Not nothing. Not jewelry, not money, not my ex-husband actually wrote a hot check on his mom. And that was when he was a kid, you know. My kids never, because they respected me. However, you've got these other kids that I saw when my kids were growing up over in the Heights that went to that school Dave was talking about that were out on the corner rich selling drugs. So maybe it's not the people that don't have. Maybe it's the people that have that need to pay more attention to the
Sure,
kids.
but it's not necessarily about economics. It can just be bad parents. Is kind of what we're getting at here. Is that some rich parents are terrible too, and it's just. But
that don't mean the kid doesn't know better.
It may or may not.
They run from the cop when they see him. They know better.
Well, you may run from people whether or not you think it's wrong. I mean, you might hide things that you're doing that are good just because it's illegal. I mean, that could be a reality. I mean,
what's good about selling drugs?
Well, I mean, are you selling Tylenol? Or are you selling poisoned, fentanyl poisoned marijuana? I mean, I guess, but
how would a kid know that?
I don't know that they would, but it could be you're selling cancer.
You know, when
drugs
you got to keep the lights on, you got to pay the rent, you got to put food on the table. There's people that would argue that there's something good about selling drugs.
Well,
and that's the problem.
That was true with alcohol during the Great Depression.
Yeah.
Because people would sell alcohol to make a living.
Right.
Because people were starving. Literally, they were losing weight. They were underweight. And so could you blame them for making alcohol in their stills?
There's still other ways to do it. I never resorted to that. I never had to resort to selling.
But that was a reality, I think, during the Great Depression when people were actually
starving if they didn't.
Yeah. They were. You had people that were desperate to find some type of work or some way to make a living. And can you blame them?
No, I get it.
It's a survival thing.
Sure.
It's all based on survival. And that translates all the way through professionalism as well as and you see it when you listen to newscasts or both, you listen to different ones, whether it be it's all about survival. And that's just my opinion. It's that we've got to get away from that. All kids, Val, you was talking about one thing that there's one universal language that even kids know, and even the dog knows. When you go like that, I guarantee you they know what that means.
Tone, sure.
Don't, right?
Sure.
There's not enough out there.
Well, but still, that's still a is you're upset about. It doesn't necessarily mean it's right or wrong. I mean, the thing is that whether or not something's right or wrong is more set in stone versus, well, Dad doesn't like it when I stand on the couch. Is it a right or wrong issue? Not necessarily. It's just that Dad doesn't like it versus, well, we don't steal because it's wrong.
Right.
Well,
I mean, it's
you even have it in a wolf pack. You have you have that hierarchy, that echelon structure in there. But what really gets me is that we're going to have to we're just going to have to get back to basics. We're going to have to teach. That's why the biblical side of it is so important right now, because that doesn't ever change.
Right.
It's been that way for thousands of years. Just the same thing. It holds true. And if you try to apply it to today compared to back then, it's still the same. It hasn't changed. It made the
humans haven't evolved.
They haven't evolved a whole lot. So they're still in survival mode.
Right.
And whether it be down in Pine Bluff, or down where you're talking about in the Jefferson County area, and even I see it in rural Arkansas. You get up there, they're oblivious to what's going on in the rest of the world.
One thing I would say that a place like that where I've become pretty familiar with what they've got going on, and I see their poor economic system down there that they have in place. These people are so active with their local politics, far more so than Pulaski County. These people know the names of every person running for county judge, running for sheriff. They know these people's history, and if they don't, they learn them. They're active because if they want improvement, the system down there demands that they will be, right? As to where people around here,
you get a more of a herd mentality around in high populated areas. And that's true with Chicago or Los Angeles. What I've seen, in other places, San Francisco, you almost want it. And that's where we get into trying to compartmentalize people and put them into pigeonhole them. Says, well, you're San Francisco. Well, you're of this
You
type
must be
mentality.
this way, right?
Right. And same thing here in Little Rock. They say, well, Little Rock's, the highest violent crime capital in the world, and I'm going, well, you just hadn't been around. Depends on how many people you're talking about.
Right.
I know you get in Holly Grove, Arkansas, they have like 3 stabbings in a year,
Right.
And I'm going, but the population isn't there.
But if there's only a dozen people, that's a lot of
That's a
stabbings,
lot.
right?
That's a lot. Yeah, the
That's a
percentages
lot,
are really high there.
Right.
So compared to, it depends on your neighborhood.
Right.
So
And
Chris,
so that's kind of what we all know what the problems are.
Right.
We do. The thing is, our next conversation has to be about solutions. And until we have that, until we actually, instead of just complaining about the problem, and like I said, we all know what the problems are. We just don't know how to fix them. And people aren't willing to put themselves out there to come up with a viable solution.
Right.
And I wish more people would come up and say, okay, let's try this because this isn't working. Right.
Right.
This didn't work. Don't just go with this every time. But you need to, if it's not working, you got to go with something else. For instance, like we was talking about Florida. I was talking to my son and daughter about it. He's talking about Florida. Right now, they don't have any sales tax. They don't have any income tax. They eliminated all that stuff. Well, how do you make a living doing that? Right?
Mm-hmm.
The tourists pay for it.
Huh?
The tourists pay for it. There's
That's
two
exactly
different
right.
taxes that the tourists pay for.
Well, the tourists pay for it, but I guarantee you, we need to find out that benchmark, whatever it is, and that's where we need to migrate to.
Well, we need to get more. We need to have more curricular activities in Little Rock and Arkansas. Then we would figure it out. Arkansas has tourism. We need to push our tourism here and then let the tourists pay for it.
Well, I don't think that's the right approach. I think we've got
Why
some
wouldn't it
other
be?
issues. Well, because the government shouldn't be getting involved in economics, but I think we've our bigger problems is we've just got society falling apart. And I was going to ask you, Chris, what do you think about Pine Bluff used to be a booming economic force in the area,
Right.
and what changed? What made it just fall apart? Was it? I mean, because was it 50 years ago, 60 years ago? I think Pine Bluff was a booming economic center.
I think we're going to talk about that here at 9:00.
Yeah.
With Selena.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. There's a lot of things. I think she's going to talk about some things, but there are lots of industry related things I think that changed. The paper mills, I believe, have shut down.
Okay.
And that was a huge industry down there.
Still got the transformer business down in that area, I think.
I don't know.
Mahoney, is Mahoney still doing it?
I don't know.
I think they are.
But they still have.
From understanding, there used to be a lot of black-owned businesses down there.
Oh, yeah.
And they're just closing up. And they have closed
Yeah,
up.
but isn't that happening everywhere? I mean,
I think a lot of-
Lyndon Johnson started that back in the 60s. I remember when Gary was one of the places to go. You would go over to Gary to go to stores that the only other way you could get to them is if you went downtown Chicago and fight the traffic and everything. But those stores started disappearing when Johnson brought his great society to all of us and said that if you want to get money from the federal government, you couldn't have a male in the household and all the rest that went along with that. And that's where it all started at. Don't let anybody tell you that Republicans are behind all that stuff. It was the Democrats. And Johnson was one of the worst about racism. After he got the Civil Rights Bill passed, which was passed because the Republicans helped get it passed, he said that, he'd have the Negro vote. He didn't say Negro. He'd have the Negro vote for the rest of eternity because of what he did for him. So, yeah, the Democrats they speak with such
forked tongues,
hypocrisy that it's ridiculous.
Well, I think Reagan talked about it, and they used the phrase, it was the soft bigotry of low expectations. And it's like, well, we're going to give you this handout because you're just not as good as white people. And what does it do? It makes them think they're not as good, and it makes them act like they're not as good.
And that the government should give them money.
Right. And then, so what do? They don't rise to the occasion and help themselves. Was it, who was it? George Washington Carver, that after the Civil War, I think somebody maybe asked him, "What can we do for Black people?" And I think it was him that said, "Leave us alone."
You're right.
And like, if we're going to starve, was it Frederick Douglass that said it? And I think it was, if we're going to starve, let us starve, but leave us alone and don't help us. And I think
Frederick Douglass.
And I think what we're seeing is that we've got handouts that are just ruining these people. And
handouts are ruining
that ruins
a
any
lot of
person.
people.
Yeah,
that ruins anybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think people know that too. I think people with a little bit of understanding, a little bit of age, understand that being given doesn't help you.
Sure.
But if I give you something, will you not take it?
Well,
you
a lot
will,
of times
of
you
course.
will.
If
Right.
I gave everybody here,
but I
$100,
especially
why
around
wouldn't-
election time.
Right, but I think there was this. I think there was this idea among society is that, well, Black people are just not as smart as white people, therefore we're going to give them free stuff, and the Black people started believing it. I think, and that was just it was terrible.
All right, stop. Okay, 8:51. We got to get our final break in. Let's do that. Then we'll be back and continue on with our talk. Don't forget about what's coming up at 9 o'clock. We have a special guest going to join us by phone, and going to talk about the blood. The scandal. That's the word I was looking for. The blood scandal that went on in the 70s and 80s in the prison system of Arkansas. That's coming your way in just a moment on the Dave Elswick Show.
What is dedication?
Come to be, Val.
The thing that drives me every day as a dad is Dariana. We call him Day for short. Every day he's hungry for something, whether it's attention, affection, knowledge. And there's this huge responsibility in making sure that when he's no longer under my wing, that he's a good person. I think the advice I would give is you don't need to know all the answers. The craziest thing was believing that your dad knew everything. So as a dad, you felt like you had to know everything. You had to get everything right. It's okay to make mistakes. As long as it's coming from love, then, it kind of starts to work itself out. I want him to be able to sit back one day and go, we worked together, we did a good job.
That's dedication. Find out more at fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
The news never stops, and neither does your schedule. That's why we're here, keeping you up to date with all the biggest stories of the day. We're 101.1, The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk.
I'm Paul Acey, and you're listening to Plugged In on Faith Talk 99.5. With apologies to Taylor Swift, the K-pop group BTS just might be the biggest musical act in the world. And even though the group took a 4-year hiatus, they're back in a big way with their 10th studio album, Arirang, and it proves BTS hasn't lost a step. The album preserves the group's pop sensibilities, but it also turns more introspective at times. Songs lean heavily into themes of romantic love. But sometimes the lyrics turn more suggestive, and BTS hurls more than a few swear words around. And often the messages can feel pretty empty too. A few lyrics suggest they get it. They're on a roller coaster of chasing emotional highs. But on Arirang, they're not getting off that roller coaster anytime soon. Want more great album reviews? Okay. Pop over to pluggedin.com/radio. I'm Paul Acey for Plugged In by Focus on the Family.
101.1, The Answer, weather.
If this forecast holds, we are in for a beautiful start to the work week. High of 81 today under sunshine, 60 for the low tonight, a few clouds and sun tomorrow, and a high all the way up to 85.
The Dave Elswick Show continues now. 101.1, The Answer.
All right, we'll just finish the 8 o'clock hour here on the Dave Elswick Show. We've got about 3 minutes to go here that we can talk. We've spent time talking about the assassination attempt on President Trump and why that's going on. And there's a lot of different causes that's causing it. People taking the law into their own hands, people who've been listening to politicians and others disparage and call people names and saying that they should die. I mean, that's the thing that amazes me more than anything else. You might have thought that a president or a congressman or a senator or a local politician was a cad, a person that didn't really have any morals. But you would never say, with somebody else, you're going to take a gun and shoot that person. You didn't hear that kind of stuff.
The thing is that with this kind of ideology, with the socialist ideology, the ideology itself is, I want your stuff, and if you don't comply with my demands, we're going to hurt you. But socialism is, well, the government does that for us. But if you've got the ideology that that's a good thing to do through the government, why wouldn't you start doing it yourself? If you can't get the government to do this for you, you've got the ideology that this is a good thing to do, then why not do it yourself? Why should we be surprised when these people with this ideology start doing it as individuals? Like, it's okay for the government to do it when I ask them to. Why can't I do it myself?
Right.
What's the difference? It's just a matter of paperwork and some what's the word I'm looking for? They're just organization and such. And so what's the difference? Why should we be surprised when these people start deciding to take matters into their own hands? I mean, if it's morally upright for the government to do it, why can't I do it?
I think it's had to do, Paul, with the drama mentality we have in the United States right now.
The drama?
What I call drama, or the general hospital, or whatever you want to call it. It's what, that's why people watch these reality shows. A lot of times in the soap operas. I remember my grandmother. They said they wouldn't miss one of those Days of Our Lives or something like that for anything in the world.
During the Watergate hearings, when they preempted the soap operas, that's when they got the most feedback from viewers.
That's what I'm
Get it
talking
off the air.
They were upset about real TV, about real things going on because they wanted to watch their fake shows.
And that's what we've got into. We've actually started doing that as it's actually moved into our societies now. And we're attracted to the drama. We're attracted to the relationships of somebody else that we don't even know, like, the Bachelorette or the Bachelor or whatever, or was it something? What's that one about something naked that afraid and naked or something? And those are the type of things that we're going for. Is the sensationalism or whatever, the sensationalism. Yeah.
Sensation.
Yeah, well, the drama gets attention, and attention gets votes, right?
Yes.
And unfortunately, that's what's happening, right? So if leaders were leading and bringing us back to these things that we all know that we have in common, that we all want, and I don't care what side of the aisle you're on.
Okay, we're out of time.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Chris.
No.
Didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
But we're going to come back in the next hour, and we'll have a special guest for us. And we're going to talk about something that went down in Arkansas in the 70s and 80s in the prison system. And it may be something that surprises you, but stick around and hear about, this whole thing dealing with blood in the 70s and 80s and the prison system in our state. That's all coming your way after the news, which is next.
Find us at 1011fmtheanswer.com. Download our apps, stream us 24/7, or watch us at snc.tv. KDXE, Kamek Village, Little Rock.
Breaking news this hour from Town Hall. I'm Rich Thomason. The suspect in the latest assassination attempt on President Trump is due in court today in an anti-Trump manifesto allegedly written by 31-year-old Cole Allen. The writer calls himself a friendly federal assassin. President Trump says all the signs of a troubled mind were there before the gunman opened fire outside a White House media dinner in the Washington Hilton.
He's got some big problems with the rest of his life, but it's very, very bad situation. But his family knew that he had difficulty. His family seemed to be, I think they spent a lot of time with his family. His family said he had big difficulty. Maybe they should have reported him a little bit more strongly.
The suspect is a teacher from Torrance, California. House lawmakers may vote today on a bipartisan funding package. It would fully fund the Department of Homeland Security. Death and destruction, the legacy of fierce weather that hammered parts of Texas and Oklahoma.
At least 2 people have died from a severe tornado-producing storm that hit northern Texas, and many homes have sustained damage. Authorities say the storm came through the town of Runaway Bay around 10 p.m. Saturday, killing 1 person. Emergency responders worked to clear the debris.
There's like 64 poles that are down at this moment, electric lines everywhere.
Runaway Bay Mayor Herman White.
Terrible. These are just not citizens, they're friends.
The storm also hit Springtown, where authorities say a second person died outside the city limits. On Sunday, National Weather Service teams confirmed that an EF2 tornado hit the Runaway Bay area and an EF1 tornado struck the Springtown area. Audio courtesy of WFAA. I'm Hayat Njwani.
On Wall Street, the Dow is up 29 points, NASDAQ down 44. More on these stories at townhall.com.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-583-0141. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-583-0141. That's 800-583-0141. Tax Relief Advocates, real solutions for real people.
With your news flash, I'm Trey Westerberg, 101.1 The Answer. Receive your dental implants and new smile in as little as 1 day with Little Rock's dental implant specialist, Dr. Samuel F. Jurek, DDS. Schedule your consultation now at JurekDDS.com. A magnitude 4.0 earthquake struck near Cooter, Missouri on Thursday, with tremors felt across northeast Arkansas. Shaking was reported as far as Memphis and south of Jonesboro. Officials say the region is part of an active New Madrid seismic zone. Saline County emergency officials in Arkansas are urging residents to sign up for the Code Red Alert system ahead of severe weather. The system sends emergency warnings by text, phone, or email and has grown to about 84,000 users since 2024. Officials say it helps deliver faster, more accurate safety updates. The Trump administration has reclassified state-licensed medical marijuana as a less dangerous drug. An order from Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche moves cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3, easing research limits and allowing tax deductions. The change does not legalize marijuana federally. I'm Trey Westerberg with your news flash on 101.1 The Answer.
With your sports flash, I'm John Thayer on 101.1 The Answer. 24th ranked Arkansas picked up a road victory last night. They beat Missouri 5-4 on the baseball field. Razorbacks with the victory of 28-15 on the year, 10-9 to the SEC. The two teams are set for game number 2 today. Kansas City Chiefs made 2 selections in the first round of the NFL draft yesterday. The Chiefs took Mansour Delane, the cornerback from LSU, at number 6, and then selected a defensive tackle from Clemson, Peter Woods, with pick 29. Dallas Cowboys selected Malachi Lawrence from UCF, an edge rusher, at pick number 23, along with Caleb Downs, the safety from Ohio State, at pick number 11. Baseball tonight, the Royals are at home against the Angels. Cardinals host the Mariners. Northside Power, your trusted name when the power goes out. Generators isn't something they do, it's all they do. Find out more at northsidepower.com. I'm John Thayer with your Sports Flash on
Town Hall
101.1.
News, where conservative voices cut through the noise from breaking headlines to fearless opinion. We report what matters without apology. Written by people who actually believe what you believe. Town Hall tells the stories the corporate press buries, from President Trump to Capitol Hill, from pivotal elections to your everyday lives. Join the movement at townhall.com. Real stories, real reporters, real conservative media.
All right, into the 9 o'clock hour, 9:06 here on the Dave Elswick Show on 101.1 The Answer. And we want to welcome Celine Hale back to the show. She was on the show a couple of weeks ago. She's on with us today to come in and talk about something that happened several years back here in the state of Arkansas. And it's dealing with blood, and it's dealing with the prisons. And Celine, I'm going to let you pick up the story here, because you're the person who's done the research on this. So bring us up to date.
Absolutely, you got it. So first, I want to say thank you for having me this morning. But let's get down to the nitty gritty. So the Arkansas prison blood scandal. It was the sale of plasma taken from the inmates at the Cummins unit, and it was placed, the blood products were placed into the market across the world. Some of that plasma was allegedly contaminated with hepatitis and HIV, and so it entered the products used by hemophilia patients. The public summaries say that this began around 1964. However, the filmmaker and investigative journalist behind the information that was put out into the public, his name is Kelly Duda. And in his 2020 witness statement, he says that he found newspaper evidence that the program began in 1963. With that being said, prisoners were basically paid to give plasma. There were private operators in states that our state profited off of this. The screening and supervision, it was reportedly very poor, and disqualified or infected prisoners allegedly still donated. And there are several witness statements and interviews within Kelly Duda's film, Factor 8, that gave testimony on this. And in turn, that contaminated plasma was shipped through brokers and blood product companies. Now, based on the evidence and Kelly Duda's assertions, they, across the world, including Italy, Japan, UK, as well as Canada, Spain, Switzerland, they claimed that they were able to derive the product coming from our state in the prison based upon the product chain after it left our state. So our state claimed uncertainty when it came to our system because of internal records being weak, compromised, or basically politically inconvenient as such, altercations on documents that were sent out. However, Canada's findings identified that the plasma came from our ADC center in Grady, and the shipping papers didn't openly say that it was a prison source, but they were able to track it through those documents to corroborate Kelly Duda's statement.
Okay, so let me just ask, during that time, were other states doing this? Was it something that was against the law, and nationally prisons were doing this as a methodology? I don't know, get some extra money into the system or whatever?
Yes, so this was across our country. Now, granted, the blood was never, from what I could tell, distributed within our country. It was outsourced. So a lot of investigations, experimentation, and research was available within the prisons. There were no policies or laws that contradicted or ended up stating that they should not allow that until this scandal broke out.
So when did when the people get involved in this? I mean, evidently it was a newspaper article that came to everybody's attention. Was this a huge story at the time?
At the time, it was huge in a sense of exposure. Personally speaking, I think that prisons today, even back then, were considerably what I call a black site. Not the true definition, but essentially, the public doesn't see a lot of information that comes out with those prisons. So for an investigative journalist to use the Freedom of Information Act and inquire and hear stories about his home state, it piqued his interest. And from there, it began unfolding and became a widespread, I guess you could say, a serious nature, especially for exposure within our state and the public and the government. And the governors, I mean, you name it, political aspect, they tried to keep it under wraps, basically.
All right. According to this story I have up in front of me right now, it says in the 1970s and 80s, about 6,000 people with hemophilia and other bleeding disorders were treated with contaminated clotting factors contained like HIV and hepatitis viruses as well. Some of those unintentionally infected their partners, often because they were unaware of their own infection. Since then, more than 3,000 people have died. Around 1,250 people were infected with HIV, including 380 children. Less than 250 are still alive as of today. So what's going on with this? First of all, during the 80s, somebody, a governor or somebody would have had to get involved in this and bring it out. And then after it was brought out, how long did it take to stop it?
Yeah, so it started with Orville Faubus back around 1955 to 1967. That's typically that time frame of where it began, based upon the assertions and the newspaper articles, things of that nature. So from there, it trickled into Rockefeller, bumpers prior, and then in the cleanup, with the exposure that Kelly Duda and Rolf Kaesler was an inmate, a whistleblower within the Cummins unit. He was also, he had his own legal network assisting other people within the prison. And so he was able to help Kelly expose this. And during that exposure, they began to run around like chickens with their heads cut off. That's what I would say, and work to mitigate the issues and lawsuits that were happening across the world. That was around, if I'm not mistaken, roughly 1990 to 91 was whenever the shutdown began. In 1994, it was official as claimed being the end, and that was with Clinton era. With that being said, I do know personally that Kelly himself used the Freedom of Information Act within our state's capital to obtain documentation to further investigate the official shutdown and what was transpiring from there. The weird situation that happened with that is he went from local court to the Capitol and was redirected to the White House. He would have to pursue the president for any and all documentation because they had moved it out at that point, around 1994 to 1996.
All right, so where are we at now? I mean, there's a lot of people, evidently, as I kind of perused these articles, that died because they received tainted blood through this program. Have other countries done any kind of research as well to see how many of their own people, like in the UK and other European nations, got this tainted blood and it affected people?
Absolutely. I can't quote specific numbers for each country, but I can confirm that Canada, of course, has confirmations. Switzerland, Spain, Japan, and Italy, as well as the UK or Europe, Asia areas. With that being said, I came across some information that indicated that Kelly Duda himself had criminal charges against him for bringing this information to light and the alleged claims. Of course, Arkansas, our government, they claimed that there was nothing corroborating, that they would have to find an existential circumstance to confirm that there was a problem with what they did and that nothing, what was said in his film, actually happened. So those charges then spread across our world, and Kelly himself had just recently was acquitted in Italy over those charges in 2022 and was able to come back into the state.
All right, I'm gonna be quiet now and turn this over to my panel. Let them ask you some questions. Are you up for that?
Absolutely, let's do it.
All right, let's go ahead. Any of you guys got questions about what you're hearing about?
You know, that sounds like some communist China stuff, you know, me, you know, just, you know, how they're taking organs from the prisoners and just it says, we'll just shoot you in the back of the head. And
That's literally what I said to Selena when she started telling me about this. That is the exact same thing that I said.
So, yeah, and I think other people probably they're listening right now are probably thinking the same thing.
But it happened here in Arkansas.
Yeah, they just hadn't shot him in the back of the head.
Right.
So I don't know. Were they paying the prisoners for the plasma, or so were they actually giving them some money, or what was the thing? What was going on?
Yes, so the prisoners were paid in between $5 to $7 to be bled, and then of course with the profit made, I mean, we're looking at back then over $100 for just one, you know,
unit.
Let me see, yeah, $50 per unit, so that's like $43 gross spread per unit.
Right, so they were getting paid something for it, and some of it was tainted with their diseases or whatever. So I've got some family and has had some issues with transplant stuff. And so one of the things that kind of comes up is like, you might have a kidney that comes available, but the person that it came from had some sort of disease. Well, if you need a kidney, you need a kidney. Sometimes it's like, well, you know, I kind of need this badly, so I'm going to take one that has a disease, and because it's available. And so it's not ideal, but it's still better than being dead or having to be on maybe dialysis or something. So are they taking this blood knowing it's tainted and then using it with people's like we have this available. It's not the best. It's not the best that could be had, but this is what we have for you.
Kind of like we're going to sell you a used tire.
Yeah, something like that. But are they not telling people that this is a used tire? Were they selling it or selling this tainted blood?
Were they transparent, Celine?
I would say, just based upon what I've read and my own, you know, personal evaluation, I would say that our state and government, they were not transparent. Now, across the world, of course, with this investigation, I mean, their communities, their areas, they are very transparent, and they themselves have tracked down families, and those families have given testimonies in these court trials as well on the effects that it's had. But as far as our side, I personally do not believe that we were transparent.
So it looks like maybe these people were given blood transfusions or plasma, and
they didn't know where it's coming.
They didn't know where it's coming from, and for all they knew, it was safe, and they were getting diseases from it.
You know,
that's obviously a problem.
Sounds a lot like a civil suit. And it could also get onto the criminal side as well.
It could be, but
it's been there already. Like there's,
yeah. And is it just recklessness? Was it malicious?
Who was
money?
Who was getting the money?
Well, there was, if I'm not mistaken, based upon the calculations, and I want to preface this conversation too, during the investigation and our government being held accountable with everything that was put out into the public, legislation actually stated that it was not a requirement for our government to indicate how much profit was able to be stated. And so if we're calculating everything, I mean, when I calculated things, I think that there was a $3 million medical contract for the company based out of Pine Bluff, HMA. And if you calculate the volume, and I mean, we're talking about 267 known inmates giving blood, or at least that range, you're looking at landing in $1 million to $5 million range with these prisoners.
You know, it was just
and how much it was sold
we had other instances where prisoners were basically used as involuntary servitude type things, or slavery, basically, that they were used. And I thought, and even though I know one instance with a state senator that he wasn't aware of it, the way I understand, but he was paying $9 and something an hour for these guys to work in his plastic industry up there in Northwest Arkansas.
Yeah, but this didn't kill 30,000 people just in the UK.
Yeah.
Or not kill, but
you're
like
getting into
in 2024
issue here. Yeah.
In 2024, the UK found that 30,000 people received infected blood and blood products in the 1970s and 80s from this state-funded National Health Service, and 3,000 of them died. And it was because they were using this
tainted blood.
This factor 8.
I have a question, Selena. Hi, Selena. It's Chris. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, good. Hey, so my question for you is, who's been held accountable for it?
Oh, Lord have mercy. That's a loaded question. No one.
No one at all.
In our government has been held accountable because on our claim, the reports were very poor. So the claim is that they didn't see a problem with what they were doing. 2, it's inmate word versus the country and the government. And 3, there wasn't anything claimed that they were responsible for. But in the other countries, they can track all the documents and where it derived from. But no one's been held accountable in our state.
All right, we got to get a break in. Let's do that. We'll come back and we'll finish up our discussion with Selena Hale and about the prison blood scandal from the 70s and 80s, and what does it mean for us now. We'll talk about it when we come back on the Dave Elswick Show.
The tipping point to ensure we stay the land of the free and home of the brave. You need to be informed and engaged. That's why we're here. 101.1 The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk.
Do you owe $10,000 or more to the IRS like Mark?
I've been doing home remodeling for 30 plus years, but the economy crashed. I wound up losing my home, losing my job, and on top of that, owing the IRS a ton of money. I owed the IRS $114,000. It really, truly was the worst part of my life.
Then Mark found tax relief advocates.
On news radio, I heard about TRA, and I thought, what's the worst that could happen? So I picked up the phone and I called them. When it was all said and done, TRA settled my $114,000 debt for $100, and I'm telling you, I was ecstatic. Could not believe it. Would recommend TRA to anyone.
If you owe 10 or even hundreds of thousands of dollars to the IRS, don't lose hope. Do what Mark did and call TRA for a consultation.
But TRA did. They gave me a second chance, and I'm forever grateful.
Visit TRA.com or call 800-575-8924. 800-575-8924. That's 800-575-8924.
The price of gold is surging to new highs. It's already topped $5,000 an ounce. The only question is, how much money will you make when gold hits $6,000 an ounce? Investors like you have made small fortunes off the run-up in precious metals, and not just with gold stocks or ETFs. Many have taken advantage of a little-known gold investment officially released by the U.S. government. Now you can too when you get our free special report from veteran trader and investor Jim Woods. It's called Gold Wealth Boosters. This new report outlines amazing gold investments that have returned 12 to 26 times more than investing in gold bullion itself. Given the uncertainty in world markets, the investments outlined in Jim Woods' Gold Wealth Boosters report are crucial in 2026, and it's free. To get your free Gold Wealth Boosters report, log on to EagleGoldReport.com. EagleGoldReport.com. That's EagleGoldReport.com.
We have truth on our side. Truth, common sense, and the belief in what's right. Use the truth to win those arguments. And stay tuned to this station to find out what's real, what's true, and who's telling the lies. That's why we exist. 101.1 FM, The Answer. You can watch the show right now. The Dave Elswick Show is streaming live on Facebook. This is 101.1, The Answer.
All right, Selena Hale is with us, and we're talking about this scandal about prison blood. This blood was shipped out to the UK and Spain and just all over the world. You know, what's going on, Selena, with these other countries? I was kind of perusing a story during the break about the UK has said that they're looking at maybe making restitution. Where does that leave us here in the United States as far and in Arkansas specifically, knowing that we farmed out this blood?
Well, I mean, as it stands, and based on everything that I've researched, there still has yet to be any accountability. And now, what I mean by that as well is the public-facing information. You know, I indicated that Kelly Duda himself had to pursue the White House to get any information on this, and it's few far and in between on what he received, if anything. With that being said, you know, I've been tracing just lineage and those involved based upon his 2020 statement and assertions in the blood inquiry information for the UK. And he had listed several individuals that were involved, or basically the narration of what he had discovered. Someone that really stuck out to me was Miss Dina Tyler. Now, she originally was in our state's news, and she moved towards media and optics and public information for the Department of Corrections. Now, ironically enough, based upon the past years, even when it began, she remained in media and optics and public information up until 2024 for the Department of Corrections. So I think a better question is, you know, we see that not a lot of people know or understand what happened back then and how quickly it was swept under, where our country didn't, you know, there wasn't this widespread information. And you also have someone who is in that media and optics, and they're the public face of that information as well. So where do we begin with that is where I'm kind of at with all this information too for us.
Yeah, well, this goes back to all different kinds of things that have happened in the penal system of the United States. I mean, we go back to Tuskegee and the infection of Black people with syphilis and things of that nature to be studied, and they weren't told that that was happening to them, but it has become an open secret, so to speak, over the last 10 years. Are you seeing now, it looks like that's what's happening here, that finally this is, you know, got the critical mass and the whole story is going to come out?
I think so. I think in due time, you know, the instant gratification that everyone would seek in this situation, that's natural. But I think it takes a lot of time and effort for this to come out, and with those massive, like you're indicating. And I think there's two sides of it too. I mean, I've watched Kelly do this film, and, you know, some of the inmates, including Ross, he indicated that not all needles were safe. So you have the inmates that were sticking each other allegedly and passing it that way, the cleanliness. And then you have these shipments going into supposedly supposed to help individuals going out into our world. Well, it's going to cycle back in today's day and age. It's generational. And how can you not pay attention to that? There's no way you can't.
So what's next? I mean, what do you think is going to happen? I mean, you're covering this story right now. There's been a documentary covering this story. Do we have to just wait to, you know, more people like myself are willing to talk about it?
I think that's the first step, because originally there was barely any time of day. And from my research, it was very hard for me to obtain the actual footage. Our state's archives have been wiped. YouTube has been wiped. The information is nearly gone and depleted. Duke University, Ann Arbor, they say they have a copy of this print. And when you try to pursue it, they say it's out of stock. They can't allow you to borrow it. And so we have to get down to the root of that issue to understand why and build from there. And our country needs to know that this is widespread and affects us all. And it begins there. And I think that's the point where it's at, and circling back around in today's age.
All right. You want to give up my listeners your website so they can come and, you know, pursue their own look at this information?
Absolutely. My website is arkansasrestorativeinitiative.org. And they can also find me on Arkansas Restorative Initiative on Facebook as well.
All right. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Let's get to the news here on the Dave Elswick Show.
News, I'm Rich Thomason in Washington. It's a court appearance later today for the 31-year-old California man who allegedly opened fire Saturday night just outside the Washington Hotel ballroom where the White House Correspondents' Dinner was taking place. President Trump and the First Lady, along with a host of high-ranking Trump administration officials, were in attendance. The suspect is due in court in a few hours. The House reconvenes today, may vote on a bill to fully fund the Department of Homeland Security and end the long-running partial government shutdown. Iran's latest peace proposal reportedly lacks one key ingredient. It's being sought by the U.S. That's a pledge by Tehran to abandon its nuclear ambitions. Last night's powerful storms that swept North Texas left at least 2 people dead. On Wall Street, the Dow is down 58 points. More details at srnnews.com.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-583-0141. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-583-0141. That's 800-583-0141. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
Feeling like a family getaway, but don't want to go too far? Need a true adventure, but don't want to spend too much? Want a ton of stuff to do that's all in the same place? Welcome to Arkansas State Parks, where in a couple hours drive, you can change your scenery and your state of mind. With active adventures or just gorgeous views where you can catch your breath, we have 52 state parks to choose from. Plan your getaway at arkansasstateparks.com. Brought to you by this station and the Arkansas Broadcasters Association.
This is Albert Mohler for townhall.com. California is governed by people whose moral sanity must be questioned. Christopher Rufo of the City Journal recently published a piece with the headline, quote, California provides sex change procedures to homeless illegal aliens. The report looked like satire. Rufo and his co-author stated, quote, we discovered not only the shelters were housing illegal immigrants, but also that they were apparently housing a population of male to female transgender illegal aliens who had hoped to obtain gender-affirming care. And to our shock, they wrote, state and local governments are providing it, as in paying for it. It's no accident that, quote, a group of Hondurans who identified as transgender, end quote, end up in the same San Francisco homeless facility. Clearly, the word's getting out. The main point in all of this is that the transgender ideology is marching onward unabated. It's yet another piece of evidence pointing to the great moral conflict of our age.
Hugh Hewitt sees damage, but there's still a threat.
Together, we continue to deliver precision strikes against key manufacturing nodes. And over the past 30 days, we've struck more than 11,000 targets.
11,000. That's not the Israelis. The Israelis are running out of targets. I don't know what's left in Iran, but they can still threaten the Strait.
The Hugh Hewitt Show. Afternoons at 2, right before Secular at 3 on 101.1. The Answer. Dave Elswick is the conservative voice of Arkansas, and he's back. 101.1, The Answer.
All right, that was an eye-opener for me. I had not heard about this and not read much about it. I knew that the prison system of Arkansas has had numerous problems within it and has been, a lot of legal type issues have faced them. A movie that was made about that was Brubaker, Brubaker. I don't know how much of it is true, how much of it is, dramatizations and things like that. But Robert Redford was in that movie. So you can look on Netflix and Prime and all of them and see if you might be able to come across that movie and watch it. But Brubaker was a movie that was made because of a lot of different problems that were going on in the penal system here in this state. So, and that's why we have so many problems of having the government so involved in our penal system, is because of a lot of things that went on in our past.
Well, I mean, and the problem is that when you give government really comprehensive control over so many people, there's going to be a lot of opportunities for corruption and whatever else. There was a book written kind of being fairly critical of the penal system back in France. It was Les Miserables. It's a very popular novel about the French prison system, where they were really rather quite abusive. But in that case,
just go watch the movie Papillon. That's all you got to do.
but the thing, the point though, is that at that point the government was making a profit off of prisoners, and so it was profitable for them, at least apparently, to incarcerate people, and so you could incarcerate people for extended periods of time for pretty minimal crimes, and it was good for the government, if you will, because they could benefit from it. And in our day and time, our government doesn't profit from it, but there's a lot of contractors who do. There's a lot of people in the prison industry who do profit from prisons, and I think it's a dangerous thing for government to be so involved in having control of so many people. And I think it's just not a good solution to dealing with crime. Giving government so much control over so many people, and it being such a big industry that it's become, I think it's highly ineffective at punishing people. We basically warehouse criminals, and sometimes we don't even know if they're criminals because most of them don't get trials.
I think
But
you missed
it is a
part
big mess.
of that, though, Paul.
It's an ineffective, very expensive way to deal with crime.
I think you missed part of that, because it wasn't the government profiting off this. This was a organization called HMA, and it was an organization that was contracted by the state of Arkansas to provide prison health care. And this arrangement allowed them to collect blood from the prisoners at Cummings in Grady, and HMA paid the prisoners $7 and sold it for $50 at profit. It wasn't the government making the money. Somebody was paid to keep their mouth shut and let it happen, but clearly there was something going on there. And it was also ran by the prisoners.
But
so it wasn't ran by.
Well, and so
they came in, they collected the blood.
Well, and so but it's still the government doesn't make money out of prisons, but a lot of
they do.
A lot of contractors make money off prisons.
No, that's where you're wrong, because even in this budget right now for this, there is $11 million for commission off of the phone calls from prisons. Yes. $11 million.
Just off the phone.
There's a lot of different things that we make money off of. It's called miscellaneous revenue. If you look into prison budget.
But there's no net gain.
$11 million isn't a net gain?
No, we're paying far more than that in taxes.
Well, I'm just saying, but we're making money off of these prisoners who get charged 80 cents a minute or whatever they get charged to talk to their family.
I
And that's
understand
ridiculous.
that's there's some problems with that. But my concern is that it's a cash cow for a lot of contractors.
Yeah.
The telephone issue is one of them, I think.
Private contractors should not be in prison. They have no reason to rehabilitate these people, because then they don't have they got job security if they don't.
Private contractors have services to offer, and that's legitimate. But I mean, it can just be electrical work or plumbing work or
not running the prison itself.
But the thing is that I think prison's a bad idea. I think it's just a bad way to punish people. If they're too dangerous to be allowed free in society and they're just wicked people, why are they still breathing? But the thing is that it's I think it's a bad policy, but it's also there's a lot of incentive to keep building prisons because people make a lot of money off of these things. There's a lot of people who are employed in them. All of these people have incentives to want these things to keep going rather than actually fixing and solving crime problems.
And that's why they cover things like this up. They don't want you to know what they're capable of. I think everybody needs to recognize what people were actually capable of. This was not a conspiracy theory. This literally cost thousands of lives. And not only did it cost thousands of lives, it spread this stuff to the people who were getting this blood for hemophilia or whatever to their partners. Their partners then got HIV, and then they maybe went on to spread it to somebody else after they were. It literally contributed to our problem.
And so how do we deal with that? How do we hold them accountable? Can we go look back from the 70s?
We don't let them hide it.
Well, I know. But so what do we do though when we figure out, okay, there were people making profit off of these things. They knew they were spreading tainted blood, or they didn't care. They were reckless about it. So do we go back? We've got people that are probably in their 80s and 90s now, if they're still alive, who should be held accountable. How do we do it? Do we take them out of the nursing homes? Do we take them out of the nursing homes and lock them in prison?
So we just don't do anything?
I'm not saying we don't. I'm just saying, is that what we want to do?
Bill Clinton's not in a nursing home?
Not yet. But so do we take say they've got some money saved up? Do we take their nest egg? I'm okay with that. I'm good with that. But I mean, what are we really willing to go to those routes and say, okay, you're 85 years old.
If we don't punish them, then what?
I don't know. I'm good with punishing them. I want to see Mayor Bloomberg.
They should be punished exactly the way they would be if it happened then.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, but so part of the thing is there's statute of limitations.
Because they would have died.
Yeah, I think you look at holding the agency accountable. You know, when you like a lawsuit, you file that against the agency. Certainly, the individuals are responsible for it. But I think you look at what did the agency do? How do we
go forward and
not let this happen again? How do we prevent this?
And that should be happening as well. But I'm with Val on some level. I mean, if we can prove it, hold the individual actors accountable.
But if they're all dead, like you're saying, how do you do it? You look at it.
You can go after their.
Well, like the company that did it, they're dissolved, of course, but there's people, they're still alive.
Well, and that's part of the problem too, is that we've got corporations that actually shield individual actors from accountability, which is dumb. I think that notion is, well, my corporation did it, I didn't do it.
Exactly.
That's as dumb as transgenderism.
They should be banned from doing business in the healthcare. Period.
Well, no, the concept of a corporation.
But they probably are doing it now. Is what I'm saying. They're probably doing something.
They went
else
from that to something else.
Yes,
you can bet
the people themselves. But when the individuals are shielded from accountability because they're working under a corporation, that's just stupid. It's nonsense. And to me, it's no different than the transgender stuff.
You can still be held accountable as an individual,
but it's more difficult.
No, not really.
Well, I mean, that's the notion.
If you're found to be having done something wrong, then you can be.
You can be, but
I've literally seen it happen.
But piercing the corporate veil is difficult, and there's a reason why people use corporations. It's to shield themselves from accountability. They do it on purpose.
Yeah, and there's a place
Criminal
for
laws
it.
are
I mean,
different.
Comcast Cable puts a guy out in a car, to drive it around, and he gets into a wreck. They shouldn't go bankrupt over that.
Well, no,
there's a logical reason for that.
And he shouldn't. Comcast shouldn't be responsible for him if he causes an accident or somebody else hits him anyway. It's not their fault.
That's who they're going to sue.
I know.
They employed him.
I know, but that's
why they're shielding themselves.
And I don't blame them. I don't blame them for doing it, but it's because our justice system is messed up.
Sure.
And so the solution is to fix the justice system and not just have these silly corporations that are set up to grant immunity to people effectively. And I don't blame people for doing it because our justice system is so messed up. I don't blame them for saying, I don't trust our justice system to be just. Therefore, I'm going to set up this corporation to shield me from our justice system. I don't necessarily blame them.
It's necessary.
It's a necessary evil, if you will. But,
right.
But it's still messed up.
Sure.
All right, 943. Go ahead.
Just difficult stuff.
That's why we bring it up on this show. I brought it up because I'd never heard about it, and I think that we should all be aware that this occurred. And I would probably say that a lot of people who went before us probably have done a lot to sanitize the records dealing with this stuff. That can be done. And I think I heard Selena Wright saying that most of the records dealing with this is now in the hands of the federal government.
Right. Which is crazy.
So
why would you hide it there? Because at the time it happened, Clinton became president.
The
So
governor
he took
transitioned to
those
the
files with
presidency.
him, right?
Hmm.
And then he sealed them, obviously.
Interesting.
You understand?
So now it's in the hands of Congress, right? To open this up, maybe.
Well, I assume it's from the 70s and 80s. It was all paper files, and so
Well, there was some computers back then.
not much, I wouldn't think. But the thing is, though, that if you're writing stuff down on paper, you can just write down whatever you want, and you can falsify records. I'm sure it happened if they knew they were doing stuff that was shady. It's like, well, I got it from
Exactly.
You never write down the people that you got blood from that you knew had syphilis or.
Well,
there's something that
according to the article you put up on my our show here today, the UK is really dealing with this right now.
Right now,
Now,
yes.
it would seem like to me that we might get caught in the blowback on that.
I mean,
they're not
that's
going to let
what's-
us get
yeah.
away with,
I can
you know,
assure you. I'm sure
pushing
you.
tainted blood.
Well, because they covered it up too. Why would they cover it up? That's what I don't understand. Why would they cover up that it didn't happen? Like, here's the article that Dave's talking about, and I posted it, I believe,
Because the
online.
UK government's not corrupt over there.
But no, what I'm saying is, did they have a hand in it? Like, did they know?
Maybe they did. Maybe they were getting it cheaper.
Because they literally covered it up this whole time. When people would say there's something going on here, they would tell them it's crazy conspiracy theory, which is one of the reasons I wanted to bring this up too. Like, this is the crazy stuff that evil people do. Like, it's not unheard of, is what I'm telling you.
The UK isn't immune from corruption.
I'm not
either.
talking about the UK. I'm talking about anytime when people say, "Oh, that's a conspiracy theory."
Sure, but
that's a
that's a way
conspiracy
to
theory.
that's a way to blow off things that are real sometimes. And so, I mean, in England, in the UK, you had some pretty classist ideology and very racist ideology for a long time there, and so it wouldn't surprise me too much. It's like, oh, those are just people in the slums. We'll give them this inferior stuff that's tainted.
Well, they're saying that the negligent doctors and civil servants, I guess maybe because they didn't test the blood or or something like that nature, but they still covered it up. Like,
but it could also still just be, well, this guy's not very important. I'll give him this cheap stuff that we have here in the
no,
back.
it wasn't like that. It was called Factor 8. It was a product that was sold.
Mhm.
It was the blood went into a product. It was like a pharmaceutical product.
It
Factor
wasn't.
8. Yeah.
It wasn't.
It was for
did-
hemophilia. It was to clot.
This sounds like an international issue. It's just
It
not,
is.
It's just not here. It's all across the.
But the blood came from us.
Hmm.
Right.
So
This
you had
did.
bad quality control, or just people who were reckless, or
No, we
greedy?
had prisoners who were literally, they had no other way to make any money.
Right.
So that they threatened the other prisoners literally, if you watch the movie, this is all in the movie, the prisoners talking about it. The prisoners would threaten other prisoners to sign them off, knowing that they had just had homosexual encounters and that they were using drugs in prison. Like this was ran by
They were
prisoners.
like-
That's the crazy part.
likely infected.
And prisoners who were criminals, who could have been murderers, who didn't care.
They're making money, and
No, because they're evil, because they were already criminals. Why would you allow criminals to oversee blood for the rest of the country because they knew they were killing people?
I don't know, but we're talking about a government program here, and people who are greedy and people who are looking to make money, and
And criminals
Sure.
who possibly murdered people who got off on murdering and making all these people sick.
Sure. No, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, we got bad people in this world who figure out ways to soak other people
I mean, that's why they're in prison.
and hurt
That's
people.
my point.
Well, some of the
Why
people,
would you? Even nowadays, they let prisoners handle a lot of things. I was told that a prison inspection was done recently at one of the prisons, and the staff wasn't there. It was a prisoner showing the inspector around. Like, what?
Mm-hmm.
What? If these people are okay to do that, why are they in prison?
who knows? Well,
I mean, that's just insanity to me.
We don't really know why a lot of them are in prison, because a lot of them take plea deals.
Right.
They've taken plea deals. We don't know why.
But I mean, if they're bad to be in prison, why are they showing the inspector around?
Who knows? You got people
That's
that they've maybe
insanity.
been there for 20 or 30 years, and they've shown themselves to be responsible, but and they might
Where
be more
was the
knowledgeable.
staff, though?
Who knows?
Around the prison, the whole prison.
But it's entirely possible that you've got a prisoner there who's a maintenance man, and he's more knowledgeable about the building than anybody else in the
That's no
facility.
excuse, Paul.
It may not be an excuse, but it could be a reality.
It's an inspector.
It's still
Department of Corrections inspector.
it still could be a reality. I mean, we're not talking about
It's not okay.
We're talking about a government program. We're not talking about good people. I mean, necessarily.
Right. So why would you leave them in control? It doesn't make no sense.
I
So
know,
the
but
clowns
how-
are running the circus?
But
Like,
can we trust the government bureaucrats any more than we trust the prisoners?
no. But at least we don't. I mean, like, it's just insane to think that why are they even there then if they're okay to show up an inspector around? Like, just have freedom like that
I don't know.
and
It's-
not be supervised.
They
And,
disobeyed the government, Val. They can't be free. They disobeyed the government.
well, I'm preaching to the choir. I'm not saying I'm not saying I'm
we're not-
naive of that. I understand that.
I mean, we're not talking
I'm
about
just
a good
emphasizing it
system
to
that's
people who don't
functional.
understand that.
All right, we got to take a break. Let's do that. Final break for this hour. Then we'll be back to wrap it up. We'll just have a few minutes left to talk when we get back here on the Dave Elswick Show.
Do you owe $10,000 or more in credit card debt or personal loans? With credit card debt at all-time highs, Debt Relief Advocates is urgently notifying consumers of debt relief now being made available, designed to aid consumers with out-of-control credit card debt. Those who qualify and enroll for this relief program will only have to pay back a fraction of what they owe. This is not bankruptcy or a debt consolidation loan. This is a relief program that credit card companies would rather you not know about, as it ends your debt nightmare and saves you lots of money. Consumers owing at least $10,000 in credit card debt or personal loans can now take advantage of this debt relief as the cost of living skyrockets. Debt Relief Advocates has established a relief hotline for you to call to learn what debt reduction you may qualify for, so don't wait. For this free information, call the Relief Hotline at 800-522-2174. 800-522-2174. 800-522-2174.
In his new movie, The Dragon's Prophecy, Dinesh D'Souza brings the new Middle East into focus with a message of perseverance, faith, and a shared global destiny.
Could the fate of the world, of humanity itself, be somehow tied to this place?
At long last, we have peace in the Middle East.
Israel and Christians are coming together in a way they have never been before since the book of Acts.
But is this the end of Hamas and radical Islam? What does the Bible say?
We have to become fighters in the spirit for God. We don't accept what the enemy wants to do with our culture. We don't accept what he wants to do with the nation. If we keep fighting, we win.
Powerful, prophetic, a must-see movie based on Jonathan Cahn's international bestseller. The Dragon's Prophecy combines history and scripture with faith, justice, and renewal. The Dragon's Prophecy, a new film by Dinesh D'Souza. Now available on Amazon, YouTube, and iTunes.
Feel like you're trying to push a boulder uphill wearing skates? If you run or manage a local business today, you're challenged like never before. We get it, and we want to help. We're Salem Surround. We're a full-service marketing agency that'll help you increase your customer base by designing incredibly effective plans to reach your consumers day, night, and everywhere they might be.
If you're a local business and ready for the next step, Google Salem Surround Little Rock today. Our experts are ready to help you take your marketing to the next level.
Now, back to the Dave Elswick Show. 101.1. The Answer.
All right, back with you here on the Dave Elswick Show. We've got about, I'm going to say 4 minutes that we've got to discuss here. So from what you heard just there, what do you think? I mean, I think you all hit it on the nail on the head. Is what do you do about it? Because the people who did this are very old or probably passed on, and I think. Do you know for a fact that company has gone away as far as that's concerned? Okay, it's dissolved. So sounds like to me, we're chasing the horses after they've really gotten out of the barn.
But Selena did tell me, she just sent me this message and she said she's listening in. She said, so our state's policies for experimentation and research, they've been created, but they're loopholes. The COVID ivermectin situation is proof of that, being tested with Dr. Karras in Washington County Jail. The FDA and medical director have to deem experimentation as fit for the said condition and helpful, and they oversee themselves.
Okay. All right. Sounds like to me that I vote for my state representatives, and state senator to do the overseeing, not, some convict.
But not the prison itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, that company's dissolved, Dave, but the person who owned it's still doing something for
Yeah.
a living, right?
I would think so.
I mean, what's her name? Dina, the one she was talking about,
Tyler.
she just retired.
But at the end of the day, what that company was doing was spending as little as they could for their product, right? And while that is capitalism in the American way, there's certain things that you just can't do ethically, right? And that's where something went wrong here. And I think knowing what happened and who allowed it so that it can't happen again is important.
And you can have people downstream of you, like maybe you're trying to be up and up with your business, but you've got a contractor downstream of you that's shady, and you're paying normal prices for it, but they're getting it cheap and skimming a bunch. And so who knows who's responsible? But you'd have to do some investigation,
Some testing,
right?
And to see where it's where to go with it. And there's also the statute of limitations issues. And if you go about accusing people of certain things, it's like it's 50 years old. Some of it, like, how do you go back to prove your innocence? Like, even like with criminal trials and things, there's statute of limitations on a lot of things. And even with serious crimes, I'm sympathetic to, okay, we want to go back and prosecute this guy for a crime that was committed 40 years ago. But,
we still prosecute war crimes.
No, we do. And I'm
Jews
not,
killers,
but
you know what I
the thing is,
mean?
though,
Like
but
Hitler's people who shot.
But if you
Jews.
accused me of murder from 20 years ago, I couldn't tell you where I was. 20 years
Accountability doesn't always mean put someone in prison.
It doesn't. You're right.
And I don't know that whatever's appropriate is what should happen.
Right. But it's still a mess, though, because from both sides, it's going to be difficult to prove things, I would think. And, if somebody comes up with syphilis or AIDS, how do you prove it was from this? If you don't have documentation showing that, okay, this blood was actually tainted with AIDS.
Well, I will just say this. You have to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Right.
So you got to close up the barn doors that need to be closed. And it seems like they may be doing that. I mean, what you showed me there during the break, Wayne, dealing with the state legislature dealing with these type of issues still.
Right. They what happens, it turns into almost you're in a situation where you're herding cats. And what's that?
No, that was me.
Yeah, you're kind of herding cats, and you're trying to throw a Band-Aid on something really fast, and rather than thinking it through and thinking it all the way through. I think actually going and keeping DNA, keeping good records, it actually has to be elevated all the way to the international side too, to the National Health Organization or whatever, to where they're watching for it too. So you have more quality control in that line, to where you check it at the source all the way to the time it gets to the thing. That's a good good scenario.
And
You've got
records are a lot easier and cheaper to keep now than they were back in the 70s.
But records don't matter whenever
if you cheat
they
on
don't
if you
care.
don't if you don't give the right information, if you
But
falsify
the
it.
thing
Right.
is,
And
then
it
you
was
have to
traced back. It was traced back
But then you have
to
to have
Arkansas.
Then you have to have the punishment severe enough that if you are caught falsifying records, right, that it's like you might as well just murder somebody. You
Well,
ought to carry the
about
same-
6,000
you ought to-
people.
That's what I'm saying. Is that it's almost like a war crime.
Right,
You ought to
exactly.
be-
That's what my thought was.
That's what I'm saying. You have to have accountability for it. You have to have punishment
Well,
for it. Right.
But we've got situations that were much more recent, like with COVID. There are some accusations going around, like with Fauci and whoever else, that okay, these people knew things, and people died. So why? Maybe we need to be focusing on those people. Those people are still alive. They're still very, very available. Why don't we hold them accountable? And let's look at prison time or death penalty or.
Okay.
There's one other thing you have to say. Is
Quick.
There's three things you can't hide. One is the moon, the sun, and the truth. So you got to stay with those.
All right. We're back for the next hour after the news. Stick around. Who knows what we'll talk about next here on the Dave Elswick Show.
freedom has a frequency, and it's 101.1. The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk. KDXE, Kamek Village, Little Rock.
Breaking news this hour from Town Hall. I'm Rich Thomason. Presidential security is under the microscope. It's being reviewed at the White House following Saturday evening's attack. The White House Correspondents' Dinner in D.C.
Chief of Staff Susie Wiles will hold a meeting this week with officials from the White House operations team, the Secret Service, and the Department of Homeland Security to discuss security protocol at events with the president. There are several large, high-profile events in the months ahead where Donald Trump is expected to participate. Among them, he's set to mark the nation's 250th anniversary, oversee the U.S. co-hosting the World Cup, and hold political rallies ahead of November's midterm elections. Greg Clugston, Washington.
The House reconvenes today, may vote on a bipartisan bill to fully fund the Department of Homeland Security, and that includes the Secret Service. Iran's latest peace proposal reportedly lacks one key ingredient sought by the U.S. That's a pledge by Tehran to give up its nuclear ambition.
Two officials with knowledge of the Iran proposal say Tehran also wants the US to end its blockade of the country as part of its proposal to lift its chokehold on the strait. Oil prices are rising after negotiations between the US and Iran stalled over the weekend, and a standoff in the strait remains despite a ceasefire. Iran's foreign minister is in Russia Monday to meet President Vladimir Putin as part of a trip that includes stops in Pakistan and Oman. Meanwhile, Pakistan's leaders are continuing to try to bridge significant gaps between the two countries to revive the talks. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
Last night's powerful storm swept North Texas, left at least 2 people dead, and there's a good deal of property damage as well. Portions of Oklahoma were also hard hit by the storms. The Dow's down 114 points, NASDAQ off 53. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Health insurance rates are surging in America, leaving millions without affordable options. If you're sick of having paychecks eaten up by healthcare costs or dealing with mega corporations, then listen to this. Christians don't need to waste money on a broken system. That's why I want to tell you about Christian Healthcare Ministries. It's an alternative to traditional health insurance at half the cost. With CHM, fellow believers contribute monthly to help pay each other's medical bills. There's no enrollment period, so you can join anytime. And you aren't restricted to provider networks, so you choose the doctors and hospitals you want. It's that simple. CHM is not insurance. It's a ministry that puts faith into action. Feel the difference of financial support and biblical care from fellow believers. Join CHM today by visiting chministries.org/wellness. That's chministries.org/wellness.
With your news flash, I'm Trey Westerberg, 101.1 The Answer. Receive your dental implants and new smile in as little as 1 day with Little Rock's dental implant specialist, Dr. Samuel F. Jurek, DDS. Schedule your consultation now at jurekdds.com. A proposed Pine Bluff ordinance would set minimum rental housing standards requiring safe and sanitary conditions and allowing city inspections and fines for violations. Supporters say it strengthens tenant protections, while some landlords argue it could place unfair burdens on property owners. The U.S. Geological Survey says a magnitude 2.4 earthquake was recorded Saturday night near the Missouri-Arkansas border, about 3 miles east of Diamond City, Arkansas. Officials say it was shallow and no reports of it being felt have been received. Arkansas State University says a woman was shot in the leg early Sunday morning during a gathering at Unity Park on campus. Officials say the injury is not life-threatening, and police believe it was an isolated incident with no ongoing threat to the campus. I'm Trey Westerberg with your news flash on 101.1 The Answer.
With your sports flash, I'm John Thayer on 101.1 The Answer. In college baseball action yesterday, Central Arkansas won in Louisville. They beat Bellarmine 6-3. Central Arkansas swept the weekend series to improve to 13-8 in the A-Sun. Arkansas State a winner over Louisiana yesterday, 8-3 the final score. They overcame 3 errors in the victory. Louisiana won the series, however, 2-1. Arkansas State is 10-11 in the Sun Belt. Little Rock was shut out yesterday on the road in St. Louis. They fell to Lindenwood 3-0. Lindenwood won the weekend series 2-1. Little Rock is now 12-6 in the Ohio Valley Conference. Northside Power, your trusted name when the power goes out. Generators isn't something they do, it's all they do. Find out more at northsidepower.com. I'm John Thayer with your Sports Flash on 101.1 The Answer.
We bring you the biggest news stories of the day. Not to tell you what to think, but to allow you to have the most information so you can make up your mind. 101.1 The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk. The Secular Crew sees more hypocrisy.
Eric Swalwell, after years of leaking information that he got on his committee to damage their political opponents, that he would try to cry foul now, he's going to try to make this like he's the victim here and try to actually use it to gain votes in California and hide it and say, no, I was not infiltrated by a Chinese spy when we know he was.
Secular, afternoons at 3 on 101.1 The Answer. The news never stops, and neither does your schedule. That's why we're here, keeping you up to date with all the biggest stories of the day. We're 101.1 The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk.
All right, we are back for the final hour, 10 o'clock here of the Dave Elswick Show. The power panel is still convened all together. Nobody's wrapped the gavel yet to call the meeting done. So we're still in order right now. So we got other things to talk about. Iran made a new offer about opening the Strait of Hormuz and seeking the end of the U.S. blockade that we've got going on. Tehran's deal makes no concessions, though, on the nation's nuclear program, and that's a non-starter then, because that is the number one thing that the president has said that has to come out of this. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Hezbollah leader Nam Qasim also officially condemned negotiations between Israel and Lebanon on Monday. Now, you have to understand something about Lebanon. Lebanon basically is controlled by Hezbollah and have been for several years now. So it's important when you hear that the leader of that terror group is condemning those negotiations between Israel and Lebanon. Pakistani Prime Minister Sharif held a 50-minute phone call with Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian, warning him about Tehran's violations of the ceasefire with the United States. So who knows what's going to happen? Does anybody in the panel want to take a shot at this? What do you think happens next?
I don't know. You're going to talk about cutting the head off the snake.
Now, well, it seems like they've done that. Basically, they've destroyed the military.
Right. You destroyed. You basically cut the head off the snake. Now, what happens? You got to chop the snake up. We're kind of like my wife says, I'm not going out there. I'll run him over. I don't know how many times and skip the, spin the rubber plumb off the tires, and all there'll be when I get home is a piece of a snake skin, a copperhead down there. Right. She's not getting out of that car. Well, until we get that mentality to where you're just going to have to just go in and take out the proxies. The proxies if they don't have any support, they're going to be the same way. It won't take long if you get the head of the snake chopped off, and you actually take that thread away. That's what's supplying all that.
I don't know. The Muslims are so different, though. They're different. because I think they can have some lone wolves out there that will function
Like
on
you
their
saying
own.
here in the United States, even
Maybe so, but so I don't know what to expect if you take away their organizational structure. Are they going to continue to act on their own? I don't know, but they're a different animal because one, they're willing to check out with they're willing to go on suicide missions with the way they operate because they've been convinced that they're going to get a bunch of virgins if they die for the cause, and so they're a different animal from other.
you have to understand
fights.
their
I mean,
motivations, Paul, is that the Shiite Muslims, the ones that we're talking about in Iran mainly, they are set on their like our Christ. They're actually set that their Messiah is coming back when you actually create the chaos and the division and stuff.
So they
promote that, and
they may be willing to do that on their own, and that's different because like the Nazis were self-serving. They wanted to enrich themselves. I think the Russians are probably the same way. The Chinese are probably the same way. I think the Japanese were a little different, but they still wanted to enrich themselves. I think, but the Muslims are different. They probably want to enrich themselves to some extent, but they're also on a religious crusade of sorts, and they're willing to give it all.
That's right.
So they're a different animal it's harder to predict, I think.
Well, it's easier than you think to predict. If you know what their motivations are, if you know what they're really after, and that's true with any political ideology or theology or anything like that. If you know what their motivation is to create chaos and division, right? Then you can start to work on that. Sure. But you have to approach it cautiously, okay? Because once they start building proxies and building armies, literally armies that can stand themselves in there, until you take that main supplier out, like Iran, and they would say, well, we'll get a nuclear weapon. Then we got everything under control, and we'll make sure that our military can withstand anything any threat comes into Iran, right? And that's where we took the military out. Took basically their navy, just wiped out their navy and all their missile launchers that we can, except for maybe the ones they have underground.
Well, we made their navy all submarines.
Yeah,
well, there's that.
Deep diving submarines.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. They always strike back, and they always strike hard, and we just have to know that that's coming, and it's not in the traditional way.
Well, and there's naturally going to be blowback.
Yeah,
but that's just life sometimes.
Yeah, well, we haven't felt that part of it yet, and when we do,
you may be right.
Right. I mean,
but just remember that Americans strike back harder. I know what you mean. That's what it's saying. Until you actually get out there and think, and of course, we'll have things. I look for something else to happen, like the tower issue.
Right, that's what I mean.
Towers, is that I look for those because it's individuals that are doing it. That's,
sure.
Rather than you don't have a conventional army that just coming over invading like we did.
Well,
we had it coming across the border.
Well, and with 9/11, they found a vulnerability. We've got American policies that, okay, if an airplane is hijacked, what do? You comply. You submit to their demands. You get the plane on the ground and figure out what to do.
These changed.
Guys, it has changed. It changed in about 20 minutes. But because, once they figured out what was going on, there was a plane in the air. They didn't allow it to, the passengers took over apparently. But the thing is, though, it was bad policy that didn't work with the Muslim terrorists because they didn't intend to land the plane. They didn't have demands that they wanted to have met.
It had worked repeatedly before that. In all fairness, I get why they had it that way.
Oh yeah, there was. I understand,
yeah.
But the reality is, it wasn't going to work for that situation.
No, not in that one.
And so they could take down. They could take over airplanes with utility knives, for crying out loud.
Right.
Today, you couldn't take down an airplane if you had an AR-15 because the passengers would take you out.
Right.
I mean, you could be well armed and you still couldn't take over the plane because the passengers would stop you. But their policy back before 9/11 was submit.
Right.
And I think Paul, what you mentioned was about the vulnerabilities have been exposed.
Mm-hmm. Well, that one has been exposed, but what's next?
Do what?
That vulnerability has been exposed, but what's next?
Yeah, that's what I'm fixing to say is that you expose one vulnerability. Why aren't we more proactive in that? Is that we're looking at it proactive in terms of does the government tell us, okay, these are the things you need to watch for. Okay, watch for this thing, watch for this thing, and then if this is happening, just like school shootings, right? We know what those
the best proactive way to deal with school shootings is to be armed.
Yeah.
Because as soon as that guy pulls out a gun and starts shooting people at random, you put a bullet in him and he's done.
Yeah, but look at the guy who just shot at Trump was a teacher. How do you combat that?
It's called.
I'm for school.
it's
I'm
called-
for teachers to have guns in schools. But how do you combat that narrative now?
Well, it's actually training, and you're going to have to actually train just like they have.
But they can go nutcase.
I understand.
That's my point.
I understand.
People can lose their minds, but one of the best ways to stop an active shooter is to have somebody in the room already.
I agree.
Did you guys see this principle? I don't recall where it was, but a shooter comes in the door of the school, and this was a week or two ago.
Yeah, they took the bullet.
Yes. He attacks the shooter
Yeah,
after he comes in the
tackled
door,
him,
tackles him, and stops him.
Yeah,
it
more of those kind of principles.
deserves a shout out.
Well,
That's all.
the first
Right?
thing that we have learned now, and it started with Clyboat and his buddy at Columbine, is that you have to react against them and not just
Hold up.
comply.
Right.
You can't just comply. I mean, I have problems where they tell kids to hide. How many kids are in the school versus how many kids are shooting? If there's only one kid shooting, there's no reason why the other kids can't attack that person.
Well, here's the thing, like what you said, Columbine, but at the same time, West Side and Jonesboro happened, and those kids were up on the levee or whatever it was, shooting down, spraying bullets down on the kids. They weren't even in the school.
Well, I understand.
That's that's just so many different ways.
But you cannot just roll over
No.
and
Dave,
play dead.
I think what they're training is run, hide, fight. That's the law enforcement push into the schools.
And that's
right
what
now.
you do with people who are unarmed.
Right.
That's your options. I mean, you run
Right.
if
you run, and if you can get away, hide if you're stuck, and fight if you're confronted. Right.
But armed men don't have to do that.
Right. Sure.
You stop them. You proactively kill the guys.
These kids aren't tactical.
No, but the
you could go
but the
and you could
teachers-
take them down.
The
if
teachers
you-
could be
yeah.
capable of that. But the thing is, you don't even have to do the tactical training, because if people knew that teachers had guns, or some of them had guns,
Deterrent.
they'd find a different target-rich environment.
And they'd bring knives or they'd blow stuff up. I mean, Columbine, they were going to blow things up at Columbine. Just didn't work out.
Let me bring up a point here that I see it. I saw it in the Middle East, and you see it in some of the other things that you actually set up different perimeters, just like you saw the thing recently with Trump. You have different layers of perimeters in there. That in the war zone you had different zones that you went through before you got to the heart of the issue. Same thing with the schools. If you really want to protect schools, it's more than just being reactive in the school itself. It's also building that safe zones out, and it becomes you're building the
Starts
perpetrator
with a
has to go,
fence.
and,
Right.
and then
The
you start
thing
moving
is, though, that
and then,
you don't
and
even
you're
need
gonna
to
stop them at
you
one
don't
of
need to
those.
be that proactive, because it's such a rare event. If they just know the teachers are allowed to carry, it's no longer a target-rich environment. Just like you
I
almost
agree with that.
never hear of a mass random shooting at a Walmart or some other place where people are allowed to carry. It just doesn't happen. Occasionally, you'll have some person who's angry with someone else. They'll get killed in a Walmart, but that's not a mass random shooting. But generally speaking, these mass killing events, they happen in gun-free zones where people can't defend themselves, and so it takes the cops 5 minutes to show up, and then they're behind barricades and wherever else.
And then they got to figure out who's the shooter.
Right. Whereas if they know that, okay, any of these teachers here could be carrying guns, and they'll just put me down, then they'll find some other target-rich environment that's not that place. And so it's just.
And then you have the argument, people will say, well, what if that kid goes and tries to get the teacher's gun? There's so many different arguments that they
an
throw at
argument
your
that
way.
people make. People have argued that well, if you carry openly, someone's going to try to take your gun and kill you with it. The reality is that
You're the first target.
well, that's possible, except that I think if you look at the statistics, it's just not true. That just if
You
got
are the first target if you open carry.
you could be, but I think the reality
why
is that
wouldn't you take out the guy with the gun if you see he has it?
why would you not pick a different location?
Well, I get
The
that
reality is,
too,
If,
but
if I'm walking into a gas station and I'm open carrying, and somebody else walks in behind me with the intent to rob the gas station, they're going to think, you know what?
but we're not talking about adults here. We're talking about children
Oh,
who are mental. Why don't we address the mental aspect of it? So we don't have to worry about this.
The thing is, though, that they're still intelligent beings, even though they may have some mental problems. You've got people that they're still picking a target-rich environment of unarmed people. They're not stupid.
No, but most of the time they're doing it to make a name for themselves because they were abused by the.
But
they were bullied and they were, or they're crazy and on drugs.
Sure,
Trans.
I don't disagree with any of that really. But the reality is they're still not so stupid that they'll pick a place where the people are unarmed, and that's a reality. I don't think they're so unintelligent. I mean,
but kids don't sit around and talk about this kind of stuff like we do. They don't realize, there's nobody there's going to be, but the security officer over there, they might plot things out a little bit, but they're not going to go in depth and trying to, or they would commit more murders than they do.
Kids are smart too. But so my dad worked in psychiatry, and so he would talk about how you have people they had real psychological problems, but they didn't hit men, they hit women,
right?
Because the reality is that you hit a woman and she gets knocked out. You hit a man, he hits you back.
It depends on what woman you're hitting.
It does depend. But the reality is that when you've got a Vietnam vet, he's 55, 60 years old, he's still strong, he's got some psychological problems, he's mad, he can hit a woman and she won't get up, hit a man, he's going to punch you back. And that's reality. So he could see that in where he worked at the psych ward.
I want to thank you for saying Vietnam vets were 55 years old.
No, my dad worked there in the
I don't know of anybody
20 years
that's
ago
young.
or whatever. But
I mean, 70, 75 years old.
you're right
maybe.
at this time.
Right.
But my dad's been dead for nearly 10 years, and so he was working in that field years ago, decades ago, I guess. But the thing is that was a reality for him. Even though they had problems, they still weren't dumb enough to attack people that could attack back.
All right, got to take a break. Let's do that right now. We've got more coming your way here on the Dave Elswick Show.
RedState.com captures the pulse of grassroots conservatism. Red State staff of contributors are on top of breaking news with stories and analysis that challenge the established agenda. RedState.com educates, motivates, and activates passionate conservatives across America, arming them with the facts that put them ahead of the political curve. No wonder RedState.com is a must-read for elected officials and for citizens who want to make their vote count. RedState.com is the place where influence meets action. Log on to RedState.com today.
In a world where more and more people decide what's right and wrong based on how they feel, what happens when feelings become the only moral standard? If emotions alone define truth, then who decides why murder, theft, or violence are wrong? And if someone feels justified in destroying property or harming others, on what basis can society say they're wrong? For 50 years, Dennis Prager has challenged audiences around the world to think deeply about the moral foundations of civilization. In his new book, If There Is No God, he confronts the biggest questions of human existence. Why does evil go unpunished? Why do innocent people suffer? And can morality survive without God? Whether a believer, a skeptic, or somewhere in between, this book offers serious answers for a morally confused age. Clear, provocative, and accessible. If There Is No God by Dennis Prager. Available now at PragerStore.com. That's PragerStore.com.
97 out of every 100 people who find your business online leave without ever making contact. Salem Media can put a human in charge of converting your website traffic to leads while you sleep. Call us today at 501-404-6535.
101.1 The Answer. Weather.
If this forecast holds, we are in for a beautiful start to the work week. High of 81 today under sunshine, 60 for the low tonight, a few clouds and sun tomorrow, and a high all the way up to 85.
The Dave Elswick Show is back. 101.1 The Answer.
All right, let me change the topic here to the Secretary of State Rubio yesterday spoke out about dealing with Iran and trying to find the solutions to the Strait of Hormuz and things of that nature. And here's what he had to say, quote, "Other than the fact that the country is run by radical Shia clerics, That's a pretty big impediment. The other is that they're deeply fractured internally, and I think that's always been the case, but I think it's far more pronounced now. The best way to understand Iran is you have a political class now, I think. Look, people talk about moderates and hardliners. They're all hardliners in Iran, but there are hardliners who understand they have to run a country and an economy, and there are hardliners that are completely motivated by theology. The hardliners that are motivated by theology are not just the IRGC officials, but obviously the supreme leader and the council that surrounds them. And then you've got the political class, the foreign minister, the president, the speaker of the moguls. These guys, they're hardliners too, but they also understand the country has to have an economy. People have to eat. They have to figure out a way to pay salaries in their government. And so you see a tension, and you always have in that system between the Iranians who understand, let's be hardliners, but let's also balance that with the need to run a country, and the hardliners who don't care and have this apocalyptic vision of the future. You right now, we don't know who's in charge in Iran. We really don't. I mean, it's very obvious when you listen to the president talk, when you listen to the Secretary of State talk. You've got a few big boys that are making some of the calls, but they're not making the calls for the country.
Well, when you destroyed their communication systems, right? How are you going to get that thing? And then you take their bridges out and all their infrastructure, their power infrastructure and everything else out. I guarantee they're not going to be able to talk to each other unless they got a generator running somewhere, and that'll run out of fuel eventually. And they have to keep it running. And if they take all the generation out, then you just basically got you go back into the old tribe thing, where they start getting in, they develop those warlords and that sort of thing over in the country. That could happen, and I think the U.S. is seeing some of that they don't want that fragmentation. Y'all talk it out, because you better find out who's in charge here, and it's with any organization. If you don't,
Now Trump's been warning them about that.
Yeah, if you don't have a well-defined organizational hierarchy sitting there, says, okay, we're all going to vote for this guy to be in charge, right? And then, but what happens is when they say, well, we'll just go with the old theology thing, that's what we know. And they had it with an iron fist. One of the things that the United States, in my opinion, is guilty of is that anytime we go in and we tear a country up like that, is we run into the best thing that we can offer is a military dictatorship most of the time. That's happened with Shaw, that happened with over in the Philippines, that happened with Saints. That the best thing they can do is offer a military dictatorship, start with. Then they can migrate toward a civilian, a democracy that you want. But you got two or three things working against you. You got the Shiite Muslim thing, and then you also have socialism or communism, right? You have the other factions, the what do you call it, the terrorists that are out there. You've got so many small armies out there in the terrorist organizations like Hezbollah and Hamas and some of the others, and they spread all over the world now. They're not just in the Middle East. They're in South America. They're in our country right now, and they have come here with that in their mind that we're going to basically take over these countries, and you see it in Europe, and so those going to develop into your political mantras.
Right. What I don't want to see though is just, okay, we go bomb them a few times and then leave them alone. They just become another hotbed of foolishness and terrorism, and they just regroup and become a threat to us again. And so I don't know what the solution is here, but if we're not going to follow through and actually have something that's long term, like I don't necessarily have a problem with even making them a U.S. territory. It's like, okay, make this U.S. territory. Business investors can go in and capitalize on this and actually stabilize the region like permanently or for a long-term basis. Like right now, we can go to Puerto Rico if you and I want to. There's no citizenship issues. We can just go there and live and start a business and whatever else. And it's fine. But I can't go to Mexico and do that. I can't go to what was the country that just got their
Venezuela.
I can't go to Venezuela and do that. But what if we annex them? Make it a U.S. territory. The people would probably benefit from it.
They don't want to be annexed.
I don't know. Venezuela might want to, but
it becomes a U.S. interest.
Iran might not want.
And I don't think that's good policy to just go in and bomb a country and take it over. That's what we're.
Well, I don't necessarily want to do that, but we got a break.
All right, we got a break. Time for the news. Then we'll be back.
SRN News. I'm Rich Thomason in Washington. He was a troubled man who made his intentions clear. President Trump's take on the 31-year-old suspect in Saturday night's shooting outside the White House Correspondents' Dinner in Washington. Cole Allen is scheduled to appear later today in court. The Virginia Supreme Court is considering whether to block new U.S. House districts that were narrowly approved by the voters. The court is to hear arguments today. Tornadoes, part of a powerful storm that hammered North Texas last night, left 2 people dead, a massive amount of property damage. Numerous homes were heavily damaged or demolished altogether in the town of Runaway Bay. Parts of Oklahoma were also hard hit. On Wall Street, the Dow is down about 159 points. The Nasdaq Composite Index off 77, and the S&P trading 11 points lower. More details at srnnews.com.
Health insurance rates are surging in America, leaving millions without affordable options. If you're sick of having paychecks eaten up by healthcare costs or dealing with mega corporations, then listen to this. Christians don't need to waste money on a broken system. That's why I want to tell you about Christian Healthcare Ministries. It's an alternative to traditional health insurance at half the cost. With CHM, fellow believers contribute monthly to help pay each other's medical bills. There's no enrollment period, so you can join anytime. And you aren't restricted to provider networks, so you choose the doctors and hospitals you want. It's that simple. CHM is not insurance. It's a ministry that puts faith into action. Feel the difference of financial support and biblical care from fellow believers. Join CHM today by visiting chministries.org/wellness. That's chministries.org/wellness.
The Danielle Gill Podcast, now available on the Salem Podcast Network.
Actually lowering prices has rarely ever been an accomplishment a Democrat could even claim. The Democrat modus operandi is to use each crisis as an excuse to pass legislation which increases spending, gives more power to the government, and which will make new crises which they can't then use as an excuse to pass more horrible legislation.
Subscribe for free today on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or at SalemPodcastNetwork.com.
When your car is making a strange noise, no matter what it is, you can't just pretend it's not happening.
That's an interesting sound.
It's like your mental health. If you're struggling and feeling overwhelmed, it's important to do something about it. It can be as simple as talking to someone in your community, or just taking a deep, calming breath when you need it. Nice. For mental health resources, check out loveyourmindtoday.org. At loveyourmindtoday.org, you'll find information that may help you get through a tough time. Things like tips for dealing with stress, how to navigate difficulties like financial worries, anger, substance use, and more. You can also find real stories of how people navigated their own mental health challenges. Because once you start to address the problem, you can go so much further. Visit loveyourmindtoday.org. That's loveyourmindtoday.org. Brought to you by the Huntsman Mental Health Institute and the Ad Council.
I'm Jonathan McKee, and you're listening to Plugged In on Faith Talk 99.5. In Star Wars Maul, Shadow Lord, now streaming on Disney+, Darth Maul is rebuilding its crime empire after the Clone Wars, far from the Empire's reach. A determined officer hunts Maul, and a young girl must choose whether to embrace the light side of the Force or follow Maul's promise of power and survival through the dark side.
The Empire may be our common enemy, but Maul will never be our ally.
This isn't classic Star Wars. It's darker, slower, playing more like a crime story than a heroic space battle. For parents, the show needs caution. The language is clean and there's very little blood, but violence is steady. Maul and his gang blast through enemies and death comes early. Dark Force themes and magic are central. Even kids who watch the Clone Wars may be better off waiting until they're older. Before streaming the latest shows, visit pluggedin.com/radio. I'm Jonathan McKee with Plugged In by Focus on the Family.
So you need a new roof for your house. You got a leak. I can only tell you, go with the best. Go with the folks that I use. PI Roofing. PI Roofing will get your roof taken care of. They'll deal with the insurance people, the appraisers, and all that stuff. All you have to do is call them and ask them to help you. 501-707-3548. It's a number to call so you can talk to the good folks at PI Roofing.
The conservative voice of Arkansas, the Dave Elswick Show on 101.1. The Answer.
Big story. Yeah, Paul, what did you
So
want?
I kind of had one last thing to talk about on the Iran front. Is that my hope is that it's going to be something like what happened here in America, is that Americans were trying to fight off the British, and France came and helped, and then we took over. We didn't have to be colonized by the French. They had a common enemy in the British. They wanted to defeat the British, and we wanted to defeat the British, and so we worked together and defeated them, and it was good for all of us. And my hope is that'll happen with Iran. Is that the Iranian people will rise up, throw off their wicked leaders, and go on about their business.
Well,
And
but the only way that they're going to be able to rise up is if they have the weapons to rise up, and the only way they're going to get those weapons is if we supply them.
and that might be reasonable. Maybe we should be shipping guns to them or something. I don't know. And that could be a reasonable approach. But I think that's the best possible scenario, is for that to play out. Is that
A revolution.
have a revolution and throw off their wicked leaders, and then not need us to prop them up for the next 50 years. And that would be ideal. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. I don't know the politics over there well enough, but we do know they were already rising up to some extent, and they were being murdered.
What defeated the British during that war?
So there was multiple factors. One of them was that they were spread so thin. The other thing is they were dealing with people who were pretty tenacious. They were dealing with Americans, and
A supply chain.
supply chain.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's hard to fight a war across the ocean.
Sure, and they
Right. And the same thing, I think,
That's
applies
why
here too. It's hard to fight a war across the ocean, but if you have the means of getting weapons and supplies to the other side, you know, we had people that were helping us during
Right.
that revolution
Right.
too. But the thing that actually I see that defeats tough armies like the British or like, you know, any other country that comes in is that if you break that supply chain, and starve them out. And I think
that's why
Trump's doing.
France getting involved.
That's right.
Their Navy came at the end, and they at that point had cut off the British from their own supplies.
Right. And once you could, in any army that you cut the supply chain off, any organization you cut the supply chain off, then you basically, they're up for defeat, and especially if you're supplying the other side. And I'm sure that our patriots back then, I'm sure they didn't want to give up the weapons. We saw how that worked out.
Right. And that's I think that's something that needs to be looked at seriously, is that the individual population, they need to be armed. Disarming the population is a dumb idea. It gives governments the power to run roughshod over anybody in the population because they can't do anything about it.
That's why they want to disarm.
I think there's a point in that. And I think black people in the South would have been far less abused if they weren't disarmed 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Because, you know, how many of them could have been lynched if their friends had been armed?
And some of them were, and some of them fought it off pretty good.
But I think the majority of them were disarmed, and I think there were laws put in place that we'd call them, what do they call them? Someone called them black codes. There was another Jim Crow laws, right?
Yeah.
And designed to disarm people. I think the law in Arkansas that was changed here in 2013, I think, Act 746, was a law that was written kind of vague, from what I understand, with the intent to disarm black people. It was kind of,
that as far as
And-
having a firearm on a trip.
yeah, it was.
You know.
It was. I think it was designed to be vague, and from what I understand, it was one of those Jim Crow type laws that, if you're white and you're kind of a gentleman type fellow, we'll let you carry. But if you're not, we may arrest you for exercising the right to keep and bear arms. And so I think that was a way to keep black people, especially from carrying. And so you disarm the black population, and then you can lynch them if you want to. And they did. It did happen. And you can abuse them, and they can't defend themselves.
It's happening in Iran.
And that's kind of what I'm getting at, is that I think we need to start re-emphasizing the dire importance of the citizenry being armed.
There's something else, is that, you look at the Constitution now, that's one of the very first things you probably need to understand is developing that Constitution for Iran or whatever, is that these are some of the things we recommend you may want to put in some document and put it in writing, because at least start thinking about what you want in that Constitution. And I think that's why they were so easily taken over by the Shiite Muslims, because they didn't have a constitution. They didn't have a really good. They had a dictatorship under the Shah.
And what's scary is that we've got these modern people that are going to help them write their constitution. They're going to write in the right to free services, free public schools, free medical care. They're going to write that stuff into it more than likely.
Right.
And that's not what they need. They need rights to be free. And to be held accountable when they violate other people.
It's just not that. It also has to do with judiciary and how they interpret the law as well. Interpret that Constitution, is that you have to make sure that you keep everything in line. So you first put a Constitution together, and then you said, okay, these are the things we want, and then you get the other side.
The method for enforcing it,
and then you got a way to enforce it, and you also have a structure and a plan to how to accomplish that. And I don't think right now, because of the turmoil that's in there right now, and you still have a lot of probably the Islamic Guard that's still they're I can tell you, there's some over there probably thinking they're going to hang us if we let this thing go. We're going to be charged with war crimes. They're going to have the Nuremberg trials again all over again, and we're going to be charged with all these crimes.
Well, there's people in America like that probably feel some of the same pressure,
same fears. Yeah.
That if we don't keep our power in check, we're going to hang.
And I see that just not in this. I see in political parties. If we don't keep our power, and these are old people that are saying, if we don't keep our power, we're going to be in trouble, right? And they don't realize that they're going to die someday. And then what are you going to do? If you don't train people down below you and start working with them,
or God's judgment's a lot worse than they can do to you on earth. But the reality is that we've left ourselves vulnerable, and it scares me that we can set up a constitution for the people in Iran, but what's going to be in it?
And you got to follow the Constitution too, because if you don't follow your Constitution, your standards that you have, that both the Constitution as well as your rules and your rules and your platforms, or whatever you want to say. If you don't follow the rules you set up,
we don't
then you basically going to fall. You're going to go into chaos. Yeah. You're going to be, if you don't follow your laws and hold people accountable, you're going to fall apart.
And that's one of the big problems here in America, is that we don't do accountability, and so we make laws against people being free. Like, you can't be held accountable, therefore we're going to make laws to make it to where you can't be free.
I agree, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, it's a mess. I mean, you can't be a barber, for crying out loud, without getting a license.
There's a lot of people that think they believe they're in power, but they really don't have power, because all they have is a false power. It's because I rub shoulders with big dogs in the meat house, and I get to hold my little pinky out while I'm drinking a glass of wine or something like that, and I get invited to all the parties and dress up in a suit and everything. You know what? There's a lot to that. Is that you have a false power. Real power comes from the people. I can tell you it does. They just have to find out how to do it. And I saw a lot of this and not long ago, 10, 15 years ago, I saw a lot of this when I started seeing people that were asking me, says, "Can you just take us up to?" It says, "We'll meet you at the Capitol, and if you'll just take us through there and kind of show us the ropes, just show us how things are done, because we're not sure how this political game is played." And I said, "Well, first of all, you meet me down in the basement at 7:00 in the morning." They said, "Why so early?" I said, "Because that's where they come get their coffee and donuts."
Talk to them. Yep.
Right, and they get their honey buns and things.
Sure. No, I do the same thing. During session, I'll go down there and have breakfast with them.
Right, but you got to start developing that relationship with your representatives and your senators. Until you do, the only ones that are going to get their attention is the people that are working there for money. Lobbyists
are effective. It works. But you're absolutely right, though, that forming relationships with these people will get you an ear.
That's right.
They'll listen to you. I've been going to the Capitol for 15 years or so now.
I've been up there with you.
And there's a lot of these people. I can call them up on their phone and they'll talk to me.
Yeah.
They'll listen to what I have to say.
They're people too.
They are. And you can gripe them out and chew them out. And if they don't know you, why do they care?
Yeah. They say, "Who's this?"
Right.
Just chewing on me. The thing is that until you just start developing that relationship with the legislators and with the other elected officials, well, you have their phone numbers and you can call them up or you can text them and say, "What do you think about this?"
In respect, and if you're routinely respectful and you're not beating them up all the time, then
and that has a lot to do with it. And I really wish that that once you find out you piss them off, piss off the electorate, and they start getting pissed off. The biggest thing is getting over your mad on. You've got to get over that mad on, and then you may be frustrated like I get sometimes, and go home and talk as you're walking through the yard where your wife can't hear you yell and stuff. You're talking to yourself, but then you get over your mad on. And then you have to think, okay, how do I fix this? And that's the question that all of us need to ask. How do I fix this? What can I do to fix this? Do I get engaged? Do I get involved in the political process? Who do I need to talk to? It's just like I said, you learn the rules to start with. Once you learn the rules, just like any other game, once you learn the rules, you learn a lot there. And you also, the next thing you do, you learn the players. You learn who's involved, how the bureaucrats and the lobbyists and the legislators and the other elected officials, who are the power players in that game. And then you go back and you say, okay, now you learn the landscape. And then you learn how the political process works. Which way is it going right now? And the landscape changes pretty regular, every 2 to 4 years. So you have to keep up with that. It's not something you just do part-time and let thing. You have to actually pay attention to what's going on. So you have to stay on top of it. And it can be nearly a full-time job for some of us. But I see people that get mad, and the first thing they want to do is let's hang them. Let's just wipe all of them out. Let's just take all the legislators and get them out. I said, that's not what you do. You need to first find out what's motivating them.
Well, even if they deserve to be hanged, you can't do it.
That's right.
You can't. I mean, even if they deserve it, you're not in a position to do it. And so part of it is learning what's realistic. You have to be somewhat pragmatic because, if you're in San Francisco or you're in California trying to deal with abortion issues, you're not going to get a full abortion ban in California. But you might get a 20-week ban.
The other thing is don't try to eat the whole elephant.
And that's what we're talking about here is that being realistic in your expectations. You might be able to do some good, but sometimes you can't do all the good at the one time.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys have been listening to my show with the last 20 years. All right, 10:48 here.
Yeah, this is your show?
Yeah, here on the Dave Elswick Show. I'm hearing myself. I'm just sitting here listening. 10:48. We'll be back with more in just a moment.
If things don't change, can you imagine America in 20 years? Scary thought, isn't it? The good news is we have the power to take our nation back. Stay right here for all the information you need. 101.1, The Answer.
If you have unfiled taxes or are in debt to the IRS, this is important news. Did you know the IRS has programs specifically designed to help people struggling with tax debt? Powerful tax assistance programs that can save you thousands if you qualify. No one knows these programs better than the experts at Optima Tax Relief, America's most trusted tax resolution firm, A-rated by the Better Business Bureau. Their award-winning tax attorneys and licensed professionals have resolved over $3 billion of tax debt for their their clients. One call to Optima can start the process, helping to put an end to your worries about wage garnishment, asset seizure, and other aggressive IRS actions. Find the best options to solve your tax problems. Call the experts at Optima Tax Relief today for a free consultation.
Call 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Real talent is defined by what people can do, not where they learn to do it. So by stopping at the education section of a resume, you might throw away the perfect hire. You might miss someone who has valuable skills to offer to help your business thrive right now and in the future. Because the truth is this: Skills First Hiring helps you see talent others miss, like more than 70 million stars, skilled through alternative routes. When you let their story unfold, you gain a competitive advantage, because hiring managers who start with skills are 60% more likely to find a successful hire. See the real person, complete. See what others miss. Hire skills first. Learn why it's a competitive advantage at tearthepaperceiling.org. Brought to you by Opportunity at Work and the Ad Council.
I'm Ferenc Toth, host of the Your Personal Bank Show. I use common sense as an entrepreneur, financial literacy educator, and speaker to understand how current events affect our money, our economy, and our freedom. Grow your money safely, reduce taxes, increase returns, and create positive arbitrage with Your Personal Bank. Tune in to the Your Personal Bank Show, Saturdays at 1 p.m. or contact Ferenc at yourpersonalbank.com. The Your Personal Bank Show, Saturdays at 1 p.m. on 101.1 The Answer.
America is at a tipping point. To ensure we stay the land of the free and home of the brave, you need to be informed and engaged. That's why we're here. 101.1 The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk. The Dave Elswick Show continues now. 101.1 The Answer.
All right, we're to about 8 minutes left here in the show today. The guy that did the shooting it was yesterday. Cole Allen, in his manifesto, he said he hoped it didn't come to it, but he was willing to kill everybody who was there. He made that statement. That should sober up anybody who's anywhere on the political spectrum.
I think if you think about this, David, if you killed everybody there, that included just about everybody was there from the administration, and then you have the whole media crowd there on top of that, and you wiped out the media crowd and the basically the administration, the top end of the administration. What are you going to end up with? You end up with chaos. You're going to end up, who's in charge? You'll be having people like, what was that one, the majority leader or whatever that ran up and says, I'm in charge now. What was his name?
That was Haig.
Was it Haig?
It was Alexander Haig.
Yeah, remember he jumped up and says, I'm in charge now. Yeah, and I'm going, huh? Somebody didn't take a civics class.
Yeah, you got that right. Yeah.
Yeah, one thing, Dave, when I read his manifesto, I read that last night, and I thought to myself, he writes it before he does it, obviously, and it's so arrogant. He writes about it like he did it, like he accomplished. This was so easy, is the way it reads.
Yeah,
and he got one shot off and was taken into custody.
Yeah, and the only people he sent that to was
Right.
to his family members.
And they alerted the police away.
Well, was it his brother that called the police immediately when he received it?
I mean, I would if somebody. My family did that. I said, look here.
Blood. You know what? Blood is blood. But when it comes to
cuckoo,
comes
cuckoo. You need to.
You got to help. You got to help your brother. You know,
Right.
he's out of he's nuts. Melania, during time you guys were talking, I was listening to Val in my ear, and she was talking about Jimmy Kimmel and what he said. No, I don't want to play him.
Okay.
I'm not going to give him the
notoriety
of doing it. Yeah. Jimmy Kimmel is being put on blast by Melanie Trump for a decidedly unfunny bit he did on Thursday about the White House Correspondents' Dinner that's even less humorous following the Saturday evening assassination attempt. He did a parody of the Trump hating talk show host using the First Lady and her being an expected widow is what he said.
That's insanity to me.
Yeah. Well, the clip aired Thursday night, 2 days before the gunman gained access to the event with the intention of not only killing the president but taking out everyone in the room if necessary. Melania did not take the joke lightly. Instead, she put Kimmel on blast, writing a scathing ex-post she shared today. Here's what she said, quote, Kimmel's hateful and violent rhetoric is intended to divide our country. His monologue about my family isn't comedy. His words are corrosive and deepens the political sickness within America. People like Kimmel shouldn't have the opportunity to enter our homes each evening to spread hate. A coward, Kimmel hides behind ABC because he knows the network will keep running cover to protect him. Enough is enough. It is time for ABC to take a stand, the First Lady said. How many times will ABC's leadership enable Kimmel's atrocious behavior at the expense of our community?
This is where the FEC comes in. Or the
Absolutely, it's where they
FCC,
come in.
Whatever they come in, and they can actually say this is destructive or terroristic, basically public terrorism, without the guns, because the word is actually a lot of times more powerful than the gun.
How do you joke about that? Like, that's just sick. It's not even a joke.
I
got dark humor,
Trump
but
derangement syndrome.
yeah, I have dark humor and I get dark humor, but that's pushing. That's like over the top. Like, she literally, like, it's not funny when the woman probably literally thinks about it every second of her life, her or her kids and her husband dying.
Right. So it probably still fits in the realm of free speech, but it is really untasteful, really distasteful.
It's almost like
it's like saying, "I hope you die."
But what if the guy was watching this and he was like, "Oh, well, okay, I'll just go and do it then. It's my time."
It could be, but there's a significant difference between "I hope you die" versus someone should get up the nerve and kill you. That's
basically
there's
what he's
pretty
saying.
significant difference between "I hope it happens" versus
let's not forget him going on his TV show with a T-shirt on that said Donald J. Trump is going to kill you, and suggested that this was the new slogan for MAGA supporters.
Well, we have laws against inciting too.
And that's the difference between what I'm saying versus.
And you have to. They probably need a better
litmus test.
A lot of our laws are written kind of vague, and we really need a clear definition of what is considered incitement. And inciting somebody to do that, and there's plenty of evidence out there of people that actually will listen to somebody that's inciting that evidence, and especially whenever they say it in their manifesto or whatever.
Right, and I think, but there's a significant difference between saying, like, "I hope you have a car accident on your way home tonight and die," versus somebody should assassinate you. There's a difference between those.
Or standing on television and showing his bloody decapitated head.
Yeah, Kathy Griffin.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. When you're doing inciting something, even if you think it's sarcasm or whatever, or it really needs to be. They really need a clear definition of what's inciting thing. It's just like yelling fire in a crowded theater or something like that. There's things that make people do things that they normally wouldn't do.
All right, with that, thanks for coming today, guys.
Thank you for having us.
We appreciate you, Chris. Thank you. This is your first time spending a whole show with us on the Power Panel. Hope that you'll make yourself available to us again.
Yeah, thanks for having me again, Dave.
And then, of course, Wayne, always a pleasure to have you here. Paul, thank you. Thank you. I'm glad that you're here. Don't forget, tomorrow, Ryan Norris back in the seat. He'll be talking about what he talked to our representatives about a couple of weeks ago when he was up in D.C. That's coming up tomorrow. I'll see you on the radio at 7 a.m.
Hey, let me tell you guys about
Find us at 1011fmtheanswer.com. Download our app.